Chapter 1146. The other party had opened up a passageway in the vast sea surrounding Mount Punglai. From the looks of it, it was done using the void essence blood. Wang Lin arrived at the hall at the peak of the mountain. His gaze swept across the various corners of the hall. Where did Master's half-disciple, Taoist Zenith Heaven go? He should be cultivating here. Master's clone is gone as well. Wang Lin did not know if Lin Feng had sent Zenith Heaven out of Mount Punglai. However, he still found it slightly strange that he did not see Zenith Heaven before him. The white-robed middle-aged man looked at Wang Lin and said with a smile, "I can tell that there were other people here, but they're nowhere to be found. I wonder if I'm lucky or if they're lucky." As he said that, he put his hands together. Black light flashed and entered the ground beneath his feet. Seeing that Wang Lin had arrived, he changed his hand seals again. Streams of black light spread out and swept towards Wang Lin like smoke. Wang Lin's expression did not change. The netherworld extermination realm power around him spread out once again. However, it did not expand but condensed around him. The surging netherworld true water also spread out, turning into the netherworld river that flowed silently, dispersing the black light and smoke in front of him. The bridge of helplessness appeared beneath him and carried Wang Lin forward, passing through the black light and attacking the white-robed middle-aged man himself. The white-robed middle-aged man smiled. "Aren't you going to Yingzhou Immortal Mountain? Your parents are all there." As he said that, he tapped lightly with his finger. The light and shadow image before him changed. The nameless ancient formation on the surface of Yingzhou Immortal Mountain had been broken by this person's clone and was about to enter. The nameless ancient formation on Yingzhou Immortal Mountain was an extremely top-notch defensive restriction. At its peak, it was difficult to break through even when many powerful experts attacked it. Later on, as generations of experts attacked, the ancient formation became extremely weak. Only then was it broken, allowing people to enter. Later on, after Lin Feng refined Yingzhou Immortal Mountain, he guided the power of the vast sea to reconstruct the ancient formation. However, it was still too early for it to recover to its peak state. It would take time. Even so, the defensive power of this formation was extremely shocking. However, this white-robed middle-aged man's clone was able to break through it in a short period of time. His strength was evident. The white-robed middle-aged man's next step was to attack the Celestial Mountain's core, the Starlight Illusion. Most of Xianmen Tianzong's disciples, their families, and the people who were friendly with them were in small worlds that looked like air masses. Right now, they were stored in the Starlight Illusion at the core of the Immortal Mountain. However, when Wang Lin saw this, his expression didn't change at all. Instead, a faint smile appeared on his lips. The white-robed middle-aged man's main body and avatar were shocked at almost the same time. They saw a ball of fire rising from the Immortal Abode Mountain and attacking his avatar. The violent flames seemed to burn the sky and boil the sea. The void around the entire Immortal Abode Mountain was incinerated. Amidst the raging flames, a valiant youth dressed in purple with a black robe on the outside stared at the white-robed middle-aged man's clone. When the white-robed middle-aged man saw this, he turned his head to look at Wang Lin. "This is your eldest senior brother, Xiaoyan?" Wang Lin smiled faintly. He blew a breath of air, and the light illusion dissipated and disappeared. He was no longer concerned about the situation at the Immortal Abode Mountain. It was as though as long as the valiant youth appeared, he would no longer have to worry about his loved ones on the mountain being in danger. At the same time, Wang Lin's left and right hands formed a spiritual seal. A pitch-black, majestic, yet terrifying hall appeared in the void. It was like the palace where the Emperor of Hell resided, and it controlled the fate of life and death. The netherworld annihilation mirror had already started to collapse. The power of the unparalleled art of destruction was added to Emperor Yan's hall, making the power of Emperor Yan's hall even more terrifying. Emperor Yan's hall crashed towards the white-robed middle-aged man. The white-robed middle-aged man tapped his finger lightly, and a black door appeared in the void. The door opened, and black light shone incessantly from within. However, it gave off a completely dead and lifeless feeling, as though it was leading to the boundless world of the dead. After the black door opened, a huge suction came from within. It directly sucked in Wang Lin's Emperor Yan's hall, which had been strengthened by the unparalleled art of destruction. Through the connection with Emperor Yan's hall, which was formed from his spiritual power, Wang Lin could see that after entering the black door, a vast world appeared before his eyes. In this world, there were countless pavilions, halls, and temples. It was beautiful, and there were many figures within. Smoke and clouds lingered, and light flashed. It was like an immortal realm. However, not many people would think that this was really an immortal realm, because the omnipresent, extremely dense death aura filled this place. Although there were many figures within, their expressions were numb, and their faces were ashen. The entire world was silent, and filled with an endless sense of death. This was an immortal realm, but an immortal realm that belonged to the dead. A strange light flashed in Wang Lin's eyes, but he did not say anything. Under his will, the door of Emperor Yan's hall, which had never been opened, suddenly opened. 2 wheels, one black and one white, spun and danced within the hall. The 2 wheels spun together. Suddenly, the black wheel disappeared, leaving only the white wheel. The white wheel emitted a large amount of gentle white light. This white light looked extremely gentle and warm, but it caused great damage to the world of the dead before him. Under the illumination of the white light, countless pavilions began to collapse. The sky shattered, the ground cracked, and the entire world continued to disintegrate. The black door, which had been activated by the white-robed middle-aged man, had originally closed after being sucked into Wang Lin's Emperor Yan's hall. However, at this moment, cracks began to appear on the black door. The cracks continued to expand, and from the densely packed cracks, large amounts of white light shot out, becoming more and more dazzling. As the white light continued to seep out, the black door completely shattered. It continued to shatter, and gradually turned to dust. Emperor Yan's hall once again appeared in the void. Within the wide-open door, the white wheel continued to spin. The white-robed middle-aged man looked at this scene with a look of surprise. His gaze on Wang Lin became even more unfriendly and sharper. Wang Lin's expression was still indifferent. His finger tapped lightly, and the white wheel in Emperor Yan's hall spun and suddenly disappeared. In its place was the black wheel that had just disappeared. As the black wheel spun, large amounts of black light shone out, cold and murderous. This was the world of the dead that the white-robed middle-aged man had created through the black door. It was even darker, more deathly, colder, and more resolute. Wherever the will of death passed, everything would descend into death. Wherever the black light passed, the white-robed middle-aged man's expression turned solemn. There was no longer any smile on his face. He stared coldly at Wang Lin. "You are a threat that cannot be left alive." He opened his fingers, and streams of light converged. It was different from before, where the colors could be clearly identified. Now the light was still black, but there was an additional, indescribable, abstruse quality to it. This black light transformed into a round mirror that blocked in front of the white-robed middle-aged man. It blocked the black light that Wang Lin had shot out from Emperor Yan's hall. Not only did it block it, but it also reflected the black light back. Wang Lin tapped with his finger, and a colorful ball of light appeared. It seemed real and fake at the same time. It was ethereal and unpredictable, but it also exuded a strong sense of power. This colorful ball of light landed on the black round mirror in front of the white-robed middle-aged man, and the black round mirror immediately began to shake. What was even stranger was that even the void around the white-robed middle-aged man was shaking, as though it would shatter at any moment. The white-robed middle-aged man himself also seemed to have changed, his body contorting. Even the huge Penglai immortal mountain was shaking at this moment. Wang Lin's eyes suddenly flashed with a frightening cold light. Wisps of smoke appeared around the white-robed middle-aged man, stabilizing his body. He growled, and the black round mirror in front of him also stabilized. The mysterious mirror light continued to flash, sweeping through everything in the void. It destroyed the colorful ball of light that Wang Lin had released, as well as Emperor Yan's hall. Beams of light continued to flash, attacking Wang Lin. The light was mysterious and unpredictable, difficult to grasp. It seemed to be everywhere, pervasive, and difficult to defend against. Wang Lin's eyes closed slightly, and the cold light in them faded. However, the mirror-like stone of 3 lives had already appeared above his head. Layers of light and shadow flashed on the stone of 3 lives, deducing and capturing the mysterious mirror-light trajectories of the white-robed middle-aged man's attacks. And then Wang Lin continued to dodge according to the Stone of Three Lives, avoiding the other party's attacks. But at this moment, the Stone of Three Lives suddenly paused. A swastika symbol appeared from within, and it rapidly grew until it covered the entire Stone of Three Lives. The swastika symbol glowed with Buddhist light, and the melodious chanting of Sanskrit continued to ring out. It grew louder and louder, until it engulfed Penglai Immortal Mountain, and filled the entire world. In the Buddhist light, the shadow of a Buddha appeared. It actually descended on the top of Wang Lin's head, merging with his entire body. Being shrouded by the Buddha's shadow, Wang Lin was suddenly unable to move. His body gradually shone with a layer of golden light, as though he was about to become a gilded Buddha statue. Seeing this, the white-robed middle-aged man couldn't help but laugh. "Haha, you've actually been possessed by the Buddha. Your life is over today." As he spoke, he also urged his attack towards Wang Lin. For a moment Wang Lin, who was besieged both internally and externally, didn't look worried at all. He calmly said, "Open." Before he finished speaking, the Stone of Three Lives, which was occupied by the swastika symbol above his head, suddenly shattered. Without the skin, where would the hair attach to? The Stone of Three Lives could shatter at any time, and the swastika symbol would also vanish into nothingness. A large number of cracks gradually appeared on the surface of the golden luster on the surface of Wang Lin's body. The cracks became denser and denser like a spider web. Then, the golden luster was like the mottled skin of a sculpture, peeling off from Wang Lin's body, revealing Wang Lin's original figure once again. The Buddha's shadow gradually dissipated and disappeared without a trace. Facing the white-robed middle-aged man who continued to attack, Wang Lin gently clapped his hands, and the mysterious sky god sealing banner, and the Tsangtian Dao Jian appeared together. Seeing this, the white-robed middle-aged man's expression became much more solemn. When he flipped his palm, there was also a flash of treasure light. It was a scroll and a long banner. When the scroll was flipped, it seemed as though a world had been opened. Billowing white clouds drifted away, and countless human faces appeared on the surface of the long banner, wailing in pain and struggling non-stop. It seemed as though the banner was refined from the souls of countless people. Two silhouettes appeared beside the magic treasures, materializing from the void. These two magic treasures were both Mahayana-grade magic treasures. After Wang Lin sized up the two magic treasures, the cold light in his eyes became even more piercing. He didn't continue to attack or defend, but instead pointed a finger at the center of his brows. Chapter 1147. In the face of his opponent, Wang Lin did not attack or defend. Instead, he stretched out his right index finger and pointed between his eyebrows, as if he was going to commit suicide. On the tip of his right index finger, there was a little colorful light flashing. This colorful light fell on Wang Lin's eyebrows. Everything around him was shaking and shaking. Whether it was the hall at the top of Mount Penglai, the world outside the hall, or the middle-aged man in white in front of him, everything was twisting violently. Except for Wang Lin himself, the whole world seemed to be shaking, turning from real to illusory. The scene in front of him was constantly twisting and changing, too much for the eyes to take in. Wang Lin looked indifferent. His right finger pointed between his eyebrows, and the colorful light kept flashing. The illusory world seemed to become unreal at this moment, and it was difficult to distinguish. In the hazy chaos, there was a vague figure lying on his side with his arms bent, supporting his head and neck, sleeping soundly. Only a rough outline of this figure could be seen from top to bottom. Within this outline, a multicolored brilliance flickered. It was bizarre and dazzling, changing unpredictably. It seemed extremely chaotic, yet it was graceful in its own way, causing one to unconsciously become intoxicated by it. With the movement of Wang Lin, this person seemed to suddenly wake up from a deep sleep, and his eyes were sleepy. A pair of eyes opened and looked forward. In the hazy void in front, silently stood a young man in purple with long white hair and a cold and indifferent expression. This young man was naturally Wang Lin. At this time, he was not fighting with others, and the two magic weapons, the Xiantian God Sealing Flag and the Tsangtian Dao Jian, were not beside him. Wang Lin was closing his eyes as if he was also in a deep sleep. However, his right finger gently pointed between his eyebrows, and a colorful light flashed. The fluctuation of Wang Lin's divine sense gradually became more frequent and intense, as if he was also about to wake up from his sleep. The person looked at him, and a pair of eyes gradually turned from blurry to bright and radiant. This illusion is good, and it is extremely suitable for me to practice. The only drawback is that when practicing, it is compatible with my mana, and people will unknowingly fall into it. That person muttered to himself, but the voice was that of a woman. However, this person has a deep understanding of the transformation between real and false. The woman looked at Wang Lin. Xianmen Tianzong? The last time the Yingxi's 3 mountains appeared, I heard of this name. They have been getting stronger over the years. I thought they only obtained the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain, but I didn't expect them to obtain the Penglai Immortal Mountain as well. Now they have 2 mountains in their hands. If they obtain the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain as well, the Yingxi will belong to them completely. She sighed softly. Now I have to move to another place. It's just that it's hard to find another environment as suitable for my cultivation as Yinghai. Where should I go? The mysterious sea has the dragon race and the netherworld sea is far too violent. There isn't a single moment of peace. The starry sea doesn't have a door, so I can only go to the empty sea and find a hidden place. It would be great if I could find a completely primitive dimensional realm or a foreign space. The woman rubbed the space between her eyebrows in distress. She looked to the other side and saw a huge golden-winged rock in the chaotic and blurry void. It was seriously injured, but it looked peaceful at the moment. It was in a deep sleep as if it was having a good dream. Wake them up first and send them away. The woman shook her head and walked to Wang Lin first. She clapped her hands lightly. The invisible force that was fighting against the colorful light on Wang Lin's right index finger and preventing him from waking up disappeared instantly. Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes and looked indifferently at the indistinguishable woman in front of him. He scanned the surroundings with his divine senses and investigated the surrounding environment. After pausing on the golden-winged rock for a while, he didn't find anything else and turned back to the woman in front of him. Dream Immortal, Ningwanga? Although he sounded doubtful, Wang Lin's expression was very firm. He just looked at the woman silently. The woman nodded. I'm Ningwanga. Wang Lin raised his head and looked at the blurry and chaotic space around him. This was a huge illusion in the Ying Ocean. The power of illusory changes was extremely strong. It should be a rare and powerful illusion in the entire Ying Ocean. The Ying Ocean was also known as the Mirage Ocean. Illusions were everywhere, making it impossible to guard against and unpredictable. Not only were there Essence Soul Formation stage experts, but there were also many Return to Void stage experts and Dao Integration stage experts who perished in the Ying Ocean. Xianmen Tianzong had obtained the 2 immortal mountains, Yingzhou and Penglai. With the convenience of the immortal mountains, he could break through and ignore most of the Ying Ocean's illusions. However, before he obtained the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain and completely controlled the entire Ying Ocean, some of the top illusions were still full of danger. Even Lin Feng had to be vigilant. Wang Lin and the others had to be even more careful. Once the younger disciples fell into the illusions, it was very likely that they would die. This illusions was full of danger, making it difficult to grasp. Unknowingly, they would fall into it and be unable to extricate themselves. However, as the disciple under Lin Feng, Wang Lin had the deepest understanding of the Tao of illusory and illusory. It was not only because of the illusions, but also because Ningwanga's dermic powers were compatible with the illusions. This made the illusions even more powerful. Even Wang Lin had to spend a lot of effort to break free. Silently, Ningwanga said, "When I cultivate in seclusion, my dermic powers will be compatible with the illusions. This is a drawback, but it is also self-protection." There was no smile on Wang Lin's face. He stared at Ningwanga and said, "This dream you created can dig out the thoughts and memories in one's heart." Ningwanga shook her head and said, "You entered the dream because of my dermic powers. All the dreams you have are condensed from your own thoughts. What you think in the day, you dream at night. Thoughts and dreams belong to you. I don't know how to pry into people's hearts. What I can see is the content that appears in your dreams. As for why those things appear in your dreams and what you are thinking in your dreams, I don't know. What you experience in your dreams is not what really happened. It is the projection of your own thoughts. Moreover, it is only one of the many possibilities, but it will be the strongest one. Ning Wanga glanced at Wang Lin and said, "You know that you have entered Yinghai. First of all, your thoughts and concerns are related to Yinghai. If I didn't guess wrongly, the three things that you care about the most are the gains and losses of your sect, or rather, the gains and losses of your master, the safety of your fellow disciples, and the safety of your parents and family. Therefore, what appears in your dreams is that your junior brother and junior are captured by the enemy. The enemy intends to lay their hands on the two celestial mountains of Penglai and Yingzhou controlled by your sect. At the same time, they threaten you and want to kill your parents and family. In your heart, being in Yinghai, these are the three things that you don't want to see the most. These are the three things that you don't want to happen the most. These are the three things that make your emotions fluctuate the most. Therefore, they will naturally appear in your dreams." Wang Lin's pupil shrank slightly as he stared at Ning Wanga. Ning Wanga glanced at him and said, "And that white-robed middle-aged man is the projection of the enemy in your heart. It is not a single person, but a combination of many enemies. All their characteristics are combined together. Take one person from each of them that you are hostile to or hate. Take the characteristic that left the deepest impression on you, or the one that you hate the most and project it onto that white-robed middle-aged man." Wang Lin's eyes flickered, but he didn't say anything. That white-robed middle-aged man was good at forbearance. He hid in Yinghai for many years and operated in the dark. No one knew about him, but he was quite powerful. This characteristic originated from the deepest impression that the king of the underworld had left on Wang Lin. That person used Wang Lin's parents to threaten him and force him to save Yingzhou Celestial Mountain first. Such actions made Wang Lin scorn and offend him the most. This characteristic originated from the incident where the Taishu Temple used Shi Tianhao's parents to make a fuss. It had triggered great hostility in Wang Lin and made him abnormally disgusted. At the same time, there was also the shadow of Zhang Lai using Fang Ting to make things difficult for Yang Qing in the past. Zhang Lai could not be considered a formidable opponent for Wang Lin, but his actions made Wang Lin detest him. Zhang Lai was cruel and bloodthirsty. His Dharma treasures were refined from human souls. His Dharma Tao leaned towards the reincarnation sect and the king of the underworld. He restrained Wang Lin, and they were like old enemies. This alluded to the image of his opponent that he had a very deep impression of. Ever since Wang Lin started cultivating, he had fought and killed many enemies. However, the one that left the deepest impression on him was when he returned to visit his family during the Golden Elixir period. He had encountered the late-stage Yuanying patriarch of the Underworld Hall, who wanted to sacrifice his entire tribe. That was the most dangerous battle in Wang Lin's life. He had narrowly escaped death, but in the end, most of his tribe were safe. The second deepest impression was the Battle of Xian Extermination. He had fought with the reincarnation sect master, Shi Tianfang. Under the heavy pressure, he had a breakthrough and entered the Essence Soul realm to protect his sect and family. After that, it was Shi Tianyi Sikongyu and the rest. Among the potential enemies, the Taishu Temple caught Wang Lin's attention the most. The middle-aged man's Dharma Tao of the king of the underworld had more or less the shadow of the Taishu Temple's supernatural power. The world of the dead behind the black door, other than the dead silence, was similar to the 8 heavens of Taishu and Shin Tianmiao's Dharma Tao. The black mirror light that was activated was mysterious and unpredictable. It was difficult to capture and describe. It had the shadow of the 9 heavens of Taishu and the Taishu mystic light. In addition, the middle-aged man in the white robe had various other qualities that were either clear or blurry. Some of them made him hate, some disgusted, and some looked down on him. They all originated from the opponents that he had faced in the past, or the unavoidable potential enemies. Piecing them together, they all had bits and pieces. Finally, they all came together to form the image of the middle-aged man in the white robe. Wang Lin looked at Ning Wanga coldly. Ning Wanga's blurry facial features vaguely made a frown. She understood what Wang Lin meant. It did not matter whether Wang Lin believed what she said or not. The main point was that she now knew a lot of internal secrets of Xianmen Tianzong. Wang Lin's personal problems could be put aside first. The family members of the disciples were protected in Yingzhou Spirit Mountain, and the others could more or less guess it. However, other than Yingzhou Spirit Mountain, Xianmen Tianzong also controlled Pinglai Spirit Mountain. This was a top secret. So far, only Lin Feng and a few other disciples knew about it. Since the Battle of Yinghai just ended, Xianmen Tianzong's overall strength had made great progress. Even if the news was leaked, the impact would not be as serious as before. However, this was after all a top secret. Announcing it on one's own, and being forced to announce it were two different things. Ning Wanga frowned and said, I have no intention of getting involved in the dispute. I just want to cultivate alone in a place where no one will disturb me. After today, I will leave Yinghai. Wang Lin said coldly, we can talk about that later. First, return my 5th junior brother and the others. Chapter 1148. Looking at the cold face of Wang Lin, Ning Wanga was stunned. If you hadn't broken free and triggered the dream, I wouldn't even have realized that you guys had entered, let alone kidnapped your junior brothers. They should still be where they were before, but just like you, they are trapped in their own dream. Wang Lin took a step forward and said slowly, I used my dermic powers to sweep my 5th junior brother and the others away, and they were kidnapped by the white-robed middle-aged man in the dream. If it was just my own spiritual projection, my 5th junior brother and the others should be in the small world created by my dermic powers. But now everyone is gone. Ning Wanga shook her head. I don't know where they went, and in this illusion, other than you and the golden-winged rock in the realm of astral soul, no one else should have entered. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy. He hadn't had such an emotion for many years after he had formed his essence soul. He stared at Ning Wanga for a long time, then turned to look at the sleeping golden-winged rock, observing its injuries. This golden-winged rock was the Sky Great Sage. The wound was black, like a torn black hole, but also like an endless abyss, filth that could not be washed away. The black demonic power seemed to be rooted in the Sky Great Sage's demonic soul and body. It was innate and would not expand easily, but it was also difficult to get rid of, as if it would follow him for life. Turbid Wave Demonic Arrow. The demon that injured him was the Zhu Jian. When Wang Lin saw this, he already had an idea. In his mind, he recalled that his great demon avatar had met great sage Zhu Jian once in the desolate ancient Star Sea. Previous information showed that the Zhu Jian great sage should also be in the southern border of the Divine Land. He invaded the Divine Land with the Heavenly Wolf Great Sage and other great demons, but was stopped by Qin Emperor Stonefeather. Later, Zhu Yi arrived with the Paramitha Bridge and joined forces with the Great Qin dynasty. Only then did the Zhu Jian Great Sage and the Heavenly Wolf Great Sage retreat from the Divine Land. Zhu Yi, Emperor Qin Stonefeather, and the others chased them into infinite wilderness, chasing the Great Sage Zhu Jian and the Great Sage Heavenly Wolf away. But now, it seemed that the Great Sage Zhu Jian had at least temporarily escaped. After the Golden Rock Great Sage was defeated in the Black Hole, the Enchantress launched an attack on him. At the same time, the Great Sage Zhu Jian also led the other great demons to move to the vicinity of the East Sea entrance to attack the followers of the Golden Rock Great Sage. The might of the Zhu Jian's demonic arrows was extremely great. Those who were hit by them would die 9 out of 10 times. Even if they were lucky enough to survive, their injuries would linger on, almost impossible to heal, and they would be crippled for the rest of their lives. And this was only because of the extreme speed of the golden-winged Great Rock Race that the Nyekong Great Sage did not take the full brunt of the arrow. It was only a scratch, which allowed him to retain a certain amount of combat power. However, it left behind an injury that was difficult to heal. Wang Lin turned to look at Ning Wanga and said in a deep voice, there should be at least a Zhu Jian in the first tribulation stage, and a revolving tortoise in the realm of astral soul oneness who came in with him. Ning Wanga shook her head and said, after I woke up, I only saw you and this golden-winged great rock. Wang Lin looked at her without saying a word. After a while, he looked away. Ning Wanga knew that he was a person who did not trust others easily. In Wang Lin's dream, he activated the 3 lives stone to fight against the enemy, but the shadow of the Buddha appeared and tried to take over his body. Ning Wanga did not know the origin of the swastika on the 3 lives stone, but she could tell that Wang Lin had been guarding against this swastika and had long been prepared. It was fine if the other party did not cause trouble, but if there was really a problem, he could resolve it in an instant. He would not let the Buddha succeed at all, and it would not affect his battle with other opponents. In the heart of this white-haired young man, except for a few people, he held a cautious attitude towards most people and would not trust others easily. In the dream of the Buddha, the swastika left by the swastika contained a hidden mechanism, which was the reflection of this mentality of his. Among the non-Buddhist cultivators, Wang Lin's understanding of the orthodoxy of Buddhism was the best in the world. Among the people of the same sect, only Zhu Yi could be compared with him. Strictly speaking, the Buddha and him had ended the way of karma. The sublimated and perfect good karma was naturally a good karma, and would not end good karma with evil karma, thus forming a new evil karma. In Wang Lin's view, this did not conform to the Buddha's thinking. However, in the deepest part of Wang Lin's heart, he had always maintained a cautious and vigilant attitude towards all outsiders except for Lin Feng and a few others. Therefore, in the dream, it was directly reflected, and it seemed to be extremely simple and crude. When Wang Lin broke free from the dream, he thought about it carefully and felt that it was a little ridiculous. Even if in reality, the Buddha really left a hidden button, he would not blindly and crudely trigger it, so impatiently, and without a reason. The reason why it was so simple was because it was directly reflected in the dream, and it would not think about whether it was reasonable or not. Just like many of the unreasonable actions of the middle-aged man in the white robe, it was also because of this that the doubts in Wang Lin's heart became heavier and heavier, and he gradually realized that everything was illusory and not reality. From this point of view, it also proved that the dream was not created by Ning Wanga, and the details of the layout were also not designed by her. Otherwise, it would not appear so rigid and crude. Of course, if this was deliberately done by Ning Wanga, it would be a different matter. Wang Lin came in front of the sleeping Nyekong sage, but did not wake him up. Instead, he casually pointed at his head. With the effect of Wang Lin's mana, Nyekong sage suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a purple brilliance. It was something that looked like a ring, and its surface was engraved with complicated patterns. However, it was not a real item, but an image condensed by the purple light. With the appearance of the ring's shadow, the purple light became more and more intense, until it filled the entire illusory void. This is your place, you can also do whatever you want. Wang Lin looked at Ning Wanga and said silently. Ning Wanga said, I have no interest in this demon or this ring. I can give them all to you, but I do want to know who entered my place and took away your fellow sect members. She looked at Wang Lin and said, if they were really taken away. Although she had a calm personality, she was not an ignorant person. Wang Lin's face was cold, and he did not speak. He put his palms together, and gradually, light and shadow flashed in the purple light. A figure flashed by, but it was not clear. The light and shadow gradually became clear, and they saw Wang Lin and Nyekong sage with their eyes closed, as if they were in a deep sleep. On the other side of the chaos, there was also a person sleeping sideways. It was Ning Wanga. At this moment, an indistinct shadow appeared. It stretched out its hands and took a cloud from Wang Lin and Nyekong sage. The cloud that was taken from Wang Lin was blurry, and a group of people could be vaguely seen. In the cloud that was taken from Nyekong sage, a ring could be vaguely seen. It was the source of the ring formed by the light and shadow in front of Wang Lin and Ning Wanga. After that, this person vanished without a trace. A look of surprise appeared on Ning Wanga's face. Someone else really came here? Wang Lin asked in a deep voice. You can understand why they did not attack me and Nyekong Golden Rock. Was it because we were in your dream? But if we were attacked in reality, it would wake us up? Ning Wanga replied, that's right. This is a dream space that I created unintentionally. I have no intention of harming anyone. So once you are attacked, you will wake up. However, if you die in your dreams in the dream space, you will really be sent back to reality. This is not something that I can control while I am in a deep sleep. Wang Lin stared at the light and shadow image and said in a low voice, I still can't see his face clearly. He changed his incantation again, and the light and shadow image disappeared, leaving only the light and shadow of a ring. Wang Lin reached out and touched it. The ring shot out a straight light, shining into the distance, as if it was pointing the way for people. Ningguang looked at the scene and nodded to himself. Putting aside the fact that he fights with others, his supernatural powers are sharp and brutal. In other aspects he is also quite amazing. However, I wonder how brilliant his master, the master of the celestial sect, is? Ningguang did not know what Wang Lin was thinking, but she could see the content of Wang Lin's dream, and the story in the dream reflected many of Wang Lin's thoughts deep in his heart. For example, his master Lin Feng had suddenly lost contact with him. This meant that something similar had happened before, so it left a deep impression on Wang Lin. But from the beginning to the end, Wang Lin was not worried about Lin Feng's safety. It was not that he was not worried, but he felt that there was nothing to worry about. In his heart, his master Lin Feng was invincible. Even if he had lost contact with him now, he would definitely come back to them in the future. Such a scene appeared in the dream, but it also reflected another characteristic of Wang Lin, and that was independence. He respected his master, but he had no intention of relying on him for protection. Instead, he hoped to solve problems with his own strength and share his master's worries. So the background situation reflected in the dream was that it was an emergency, and his master was not around to deal with it, so he had to share his master's worries. Although he was cautious with most people, there were some people that Wang Lin still trusted. Just like when he knew that Xiao Yan had arrived at Yingzhou Spirit Mountain, he was completely relieved. Even if his parents and family were there, he believed that his big senior brother, Xiao Yan, would definitely be able to deal with the enemy. And he himself was facing the greater threat of the white-robed middle-aged man, who had many magical treasures with him. Wang Lin believed in Xiao Yan, and he was willing to face a more dangerous enemy for the sake of his sect. The enemy was strong, but he was not afraid. Interesting person. Ningguang looked at Wang Lin, and saw that the road that extended into the distance suddenly changed. There seemed to be an illusion at the end, and there was a figure moving in the illusion, and a voice said, "Oh, did you guys notice?" The voice was blurry, and it was hard to tell whether it was male or female. It was sometimes rough, sometimes sharp. Wang Lin was indifferent, and did not say anything. He continued to practice, trying to lock onto the other party's position, and track his whereabouts. The other party did not seem to be in a hurry. Instead, he said to Ningguang, "Dream immortal? That's all there is to it. Entering your dream is as easy as taking something out of my pocket." Ningguang was not angry. Silently, he said, "There is always someone better out there. And there is always someone better out there. This is nothing surprising. I never thought that my dream Tao was unbreakable." The person laughed and said, "You have a very simple personality, but are you always so indifferent to everything?" Hearing that, Ningguang frowned slightly. "What do you want?" Chapter 1149. Ningguang stared at the figure in the blurry light. Her body was blurry and colorful. Her face, which was hard to distinguish clearly, had a solemn look on it. The person said calmly, "Haven't you always wanted to know about your past? You want to know about the past that you have completely forgotten 4,000 years ago." The light in Ningguang's eyes intensified as she stared at the ball of light. Wang Lin also showed a rare look of surprise on his face as he turned to look at Ningguang. At Ningguang's level of cultivation, her primordial spirit was strong and her spiritual soul was clear. She could remember everything she had experienced in the past. She didn't think about it usually because she didn't need it. But once she needed it, she could instantly find all the information she needed from the depths of her memory. But according to that person, Ningguang did not have any memory of what happened 4,000 years ago. What happened 4,000 years ago was a gap in her memory. She could clearly remember how she lived and how she cultivated in the past 4,000 years, but she had no memory of what happened 4,000 years ago. His soul is severely injured, and it must be an injury that is difficult to repair in order to cause this result. However, the hope is very slim. Wang Lin thought to himself. Ningguang used dreams to enter the Tao. He was able to cause others to fall into a deep sleep in his dreams without anyone noticing, allowing him to distinguish between reality and illusion. His strongest point should be his spirit. In this aspect, he should be stronger than other cultivators of the same realm. But Wang Lin was very surprised that she had lost her memory. Ning Wanga suddenly turned her head and looked at Wang Lin. Her whole body was shining brightly, and waves of magical power spread out. Her body became even more illusory, and it was hard to distinguish her form, just like clouds and mist. She lost her memories from 4,000 years ago. This was a top secret. Logically, no one should know about it. Ning Wanga was a master of creating dreams and illusions. In such a situation, her first reaction was to check if she had fallen into Wang Lin's illusion. Just like Wang Lin, she used her own thoughts to construct the unknown person in the light and shadow. That was why she knew the secret that should only be known by herself. But after Ning Wanga checked, she didn't find anything. She abruptly turned her head to look at the ball of light. If she hadn't fallen into an illusion, then there was only one explanation. He had come into contact with her 4,000 years ago, and silently observed her for a long time. Ning Wanga was indifferent by nature, and did not care about most things. However, there was one thing that she was very concerned about. That was her missing past from 4,000 years ago. Who was she? Where did she come from? Who did she know in the past? What did she want to do in the past? Why did she become like this? There were too many questions plaguing her. Ning Wanga asked word by word. Who the hell are you? The other party chuckled but did not reply. He turned around and left. Wang Lin, who was beside Ning Wanga, clapped his hands, and the path formed by the light and shadow in front of him gradually solidified. Success. Wang Lin waved his hand, and the sleeping Neptune Great Sage fell into his hand. He picked him up and chased into the distance. After a moment of silence, Ning Wanga also flew up and left the illusion. She followed Wang Lin and chased into the distance. On the way, Wang Lin turned his head and looked at her. You said that my junior brothers and the others should still be in a deep sleep? Ning Wanga replied. If no one deliberately woke them up with their cultivation, they should still be in a deep sleep. She immediately understood what Wang Lin meant. Wang Lin saw her look over and nodded. Can you contact the dreams of my junior brothers and the others to determine their location? I am looking for that person now, but the information I have is still limited. Ning Wanga closed her eyes slightly and shook her head. I can't feel it. They might have been awakened by that person. She looked at Wang Lin and did not say the second half of the sentence. If Yangqing and the others were already dead, then she would not be able to enter their dreams either. Wang Lin nodded and did not say anything. He flew forward all the way. Light flashed in his left eye, and a celestial mountain could be vaguely seen in the light. It looked like the Yingzhou Celestial Mountain. With this convenience, most of the illusions in Yingxi were ineffective against him. The battle just now was all an illusion. Naturally, Lin Feng did not lose contact. Xiao Yan also did not enter Yingxi to guard the Yingzhou Celestial Mountain. Wang Lin was not in a hurry to contact them. Instead, he continued to follow the clues alone, and chase the enemy in Yingxi. Ning Wanga was also doing something. Yingxi was like a fish in water to her. In the entire Tianyuan world, she was one of the few experts who was not afraid of most of the environments in Yingxi. To other cultivators or great demons, Yingxi was a paradise filled with danger and trepidation. Clouds and smoke flew out from her hands and merged into the clouds in the sky above Yingxi. These clouds and smoke intertwined with each other on the path that the two of them were taking, making the path clearer and more stable. The two of them flew all the way. After a long chase, they finally intercepted the person in the sky above a sea region. The person who appeared in front of Wang Lin and Ning Wanga was an ordinary-looking person dressed in a gray robe. However, his face seemed to be shrouded in a layer of smoke and could not be seen clearly. Ning Wanga frowned even more when she saw the person. Who are you? The person in gray laughed. You are not slow. Wang Lin said coldly, leave the things and the person behind. The person in gray laughed. I should be the one telling you not to move. Otherwise, the lives of your fellow sect members will be in danger. Don't forget, they are in my hands. Wang Lin said calmly, I never take threats. The person in gray said indifferently, then you are the one who killed your junior brother and fellow sect members. Wang Lin shook his head. Taking threats from you will only cause greater losses. I would rather kill you to avenge my fifth junior brother and the younger generation. He was extremely concerned about the safety of Yangqing and the others, but it would not make him lose his calmness and judgment. The result of compromising might be that both the rescuer and the hostage would be in danger. Moreover, he would give up the initiative for nothing. If he did not compromise, even if the worst situation happened, he could still take revenge afterwards. Even if he had to pay with his life for Yangqing and the others in the future, he had to ensure that the culprit would be at the bottom of everyone's coffin. For some people, they might not have the heart to take a fluke, or they might not be able to bear the huge sense of guilt and responsibility. However, all of these did not exist for Wang Lin. His state of mind was enough to bear the suffering and torment brought about by the tragedy. It was enough to bear the heavy and suffocating feeling of darkness and guilt. In Wang Lin's heart, there was no fluke or compromise. He firmly believed that the best way to ensure the safety of Yangqing and the others was to strive for control of the initiative in his own hands. If he exposed his weakness to the opponent and exposed what he cared about too much in his heart, the opponent would be even more fearless and would be even more unscrupulous in targeting his weakness. The man in gray said with a smile, "Wang Lin, the third disciple of Lin Feng, the master of the Xianmen sect. Everyone says that you are cold and ruthless, cruel and bloodthirsty, but I know that you are not a ruthless person. Your parents and family care a lot about your master and your fellow sect members. Not only Ning Wanga, but I have also been observing you for a long time. I will not be wrong. You care a lot about your junior brother and sect members." The man in gray said, "The one who has scruples is you, not me. Even if I don't take them as hostages and kill them in front of you, it will definitely have the effect of shaking your state of mind. Hatred and anger may make you more ferocious, but it will also make you lose your calm and composure. Especially at the moment when everything just happened, it will have an even more important effect. For me, killing them is still valuable." Wang Lin looked at him coldly and did not say anything. His eyes were cold and piercingly cold. The man in gray was about to speak when his body suddenly trembled slightly. Circles of light spread out in all directions with him as the center. The surrounding heaven and earth suddenly changed. Looking into the distance, it was still the void of the Ying Sea where the three of them had stood. Wang Lin and Ning Wanga, who were supposed to be standing face to face with him, were nowhere to be seen. Wang Lin was staring at the gray-robed man coldly. Wang Lin's palm was stretched out in front of the gray-robed man's chest. Black clouds were shining in the center of his palm, and Wang Lin was forcibly sucking out two masses of qi from the gray-robed man's body. In one of the air masses, a figure could be seen. In the other air mass, a ring could be vaguely seen. Ning Wanga stood beside Wang Lin with a calm expression. "Although this place is far away from the illusory realm I used to live in, I have settled down there for a long time. Even if I change places, as long as I don't leave the Ying Sea, I can still receive the power of the illusory realm. That illusory realm has basically been refined into my own supernatural power. It is all compatible with this illusory realm. When I actively activate the power of the nether illusion realm, the power of the supernatural power is completely different from when I unintentionally activate it during cultivation. It is indeed extraordinary that you can detect it. But unfortunately, it is too late." A colorful light appeared on Wang Lin's finger. He pointed at the blurry face of the man in gray and said, "Let us see who you are." Wherever the light shone, the clouds that shrouded the man in gray's face gradually dissipated. A fresh and beautiful face was revealed. It was a young woman. But after seeing the woman's face clearly, Ning Wanga's body shook violently. She was dumbfounded. This rogue cultivator with powerful supernatural power, and supernatural power, had actually fallen into a state of absent-mindedness. The colorful light on her body dispersed unexpectedly in her state of absent-mindedness. Gradually, the figure was revealed. It was a beautiful woman dressed in a white palace dress. The only difference was that Ning Wanga, who was dressed in white, had the exact same facial features as the gray-clothed woman in front of him. Confusion appeared in Ning Wanga's eyes. She wanted to say something, but she couldn't say a word. And the woman in gray, who should have taken this opportunity to attack, didn't launch any counterattack. She didn't move or say a word. It was as if she had turned into a clay statue. Then, she gradually shattered in the void and turned into nothingness. Ning Wanga was shocked. When she turned her head again, she saw that the void in front of her had also started to shatter. Outside the shattered world, another Wang Lin appeared in front of her. His expression was calm and indifferent. He sat cross-legged and looked at her silently. Chapter 1150. The void of Yingxi above her head was shattering. The sea under her feet was shattering, and the white clouds around her were also shattering. She turned around and saw that Wang Lin, who was beside her, had also become expressionless. His figure also became illusory like a bubble and gradually shattered. Ningguang took a deep breath and slowly closed her eyes as she looked at the scene before her. When she opened her eyes again, the scene in front of her had completely changed. She was still in Yingxi, but it wasn't the place where she had chased after the gray-clothed woman. She was still at the place where she had been at the beginning. However, the illusion that she had always used to live in had now changed its appearance, making it difficult for her to recognize it. Everything had become hazy and hard to identify. Ningguang could clearly feel that her 5 senses, including vision, hearing, and even the waves of her divine sense had become weak, as if they were being suppressed by something. She felt as if she was immersed in water, and everything in front of her was black and white. There was no color, no sound, and no obvious sense of touch with the space. Ningguang had lived in seclusion in Yingxi for many years, and had no conflicts with the world. She had never participated in the birth of Yingxi's 3 mountains, but she had heard many things about Yingxi. This is the power of the nameless ancient formation of Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. At this moment, she came to a realization. She turned around and saw a young man in purple sitting cross-legged at the side, looking at her calmly. It was Wang Lin. Wang Lin sat cross-legged on the ground with his hands flat on his knees. His white hair spread out behind his back as he looked at Ningguang, who was dressed in a white palace dress and had a delicate and elegant look. Ningguang didn't get angry. She looked elegant and calm, but there was a strange expression on her face. She tilted her head slightly and looked at Wang Lin. Was that your Dharma spell just now? Wang Lin nodded. That's right. Ningguang frowned slightly. How did you bring me to Yingzhou Immortal Mountain? Or did you control Yingzhou Immortal Mountain to come here? Sensing that he was enveloped by the power of the nameless ancient array of the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain, Ningguang was no longer surprised as to why he had suspected that everything was an illusion and failed to crack it. Her and Wang Lin's attainments in the Tao of changing illusions were basically on the same level. In fact, she might be better than him. Therefore, after the nether dream illusory realm that she had unintentionally created combined with the Yingxi's inherent illusions, she had unconsciously used the geographical advantage to trap Wang Lin for a long time. However, Wang Lin's illusions not only used his own Dharma powers, but also the power of the nameless ancient array of the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. It trapped her spirit and blocked the connection between her and the illusions beneath her feet. Not only did the geographical advantage between them reverse, but she was also weakened in terms of Dharma powers and Dharma powers. More importantly, when Wang Lin broke her Dharma spell, he also merged the power of the nether dream illusory realm with the power of the ancient array, which acted on her. Ningguang was like opening the door to a thief, so she fell into Wang Lin's trap without realizing it. However, Ningguang could still accept it. She was just curious as to why Wang Lin had brought her to Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. Is Yingzhou Immortal Mountain very close to this place? Ningguang asked. Wang Lin looked calm. He shook his head and said with rare patience, "That's not the case. We are now in the illusions that you live in, and we haven't moved. I used the treasure left by my master to guide the power of the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain's ancient array here." He opened his hand, and there were some broken stones in his palm. It looked like a broken crystal. Ningguang nodded. From the moment I opened my eyes and saw you, I was already in your Dharma spell? Wang Lin said calmly, "That's right. It wasn't you who broke the Dharma spell and woke me up from my deep sleep. It was me who woke up from your Tao of dreams." Wang Lin, who was sitting on the ground, stood up and put his hands behind his back. He looked at Ningguang and said, "I woke up from your Tao of dreams, and you also woke up from your cultivation state. But at that moment, I used my Dharma spell." Ningguang raised her head slightly. "This illusions of yours actually reflected and merged with my nether dream illusory realm. projecting the thoughts in one's heart. The experience in the illusions projected the things that she had always been worried about, which were her lost memories, her origin, and the past that she had forgotten. She knew about the existence of Niekong Great Sage, Yang Qing, and the others because they had also fallen into Ning Wanga's nether dream illusory realm. Although Ning Wanga didn't realize it at that time, there was still feedback when she woke up. Wang Lin said, but the final result was beyond my expectations. When he broke Ning Wanga's nether dream illusory realm, he combined the illusions with his own Dharma spell and the power of the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain's ancient array, and applied it on Ning Wanga. It was also beyond his expectations. But he didn't stop. He wanted to confirm Ning Wanga's identity and purpose of coming, and break her nether dream illusory realm. The moment he saw Ning Wanga, Wang Lin had already realized that it wasn't Ning Wanga's intention to enter the illusions by mistake. Although Wang Lin's methods were cruel, and he never left his enemies alive, he wouldn't kill blindly when it was difficult to distinguish between friend and foe. It was just that the highest level of vigilance was essential. Moreover, he also had to guard against the possibility that his judgment of Ning Wanga's methods was wrong. If Ning Wanga had done it intentionally and could hide from his perception, then her intentions and ability would be extremely dangerous. All kinds of experiences showed that Ning Wanga really didn't have any hostility. What happened before was more of an accident. The woman in front of him basically didn't care about anything other than finding out about his identity. She was very easygoing. Moreover, she was broad-minded and even somewhat soft-hearted. In the illusion projected by her mind, Wang Lin saved Yang Qing and the others safely. No one was killed, and there were no sacrifices. As for the man in the gray robe, he was more interested in finding out his identity than killing him. The man in the gray robe in the illusions just now was not designed by Wang Lin. Just like the man in the white robe in the nether dream illusory realm, the man in the gray robe was also the projection of the opponent in Ning Wanga's heart. The last scene was also out of Wang Lin's expectation. It was as if it was buried in the deepest part of Ning Wanga's heart. Even she didn't realize it. Or maybe she had been avoiding it subconsciously. But in this illusion, it was successfully reflected. But because it was too sudden, it conflicted with Ning Wanga's usual state of mind. The illusion could not give a reasonable response to Ning Wanga's sudden change in state of mind. Hence, Ning Wanga woke up from the illusion. The existence of the man in the gray robe was actually hinting at the question that Ning Wanga had always had. It was the missing memory that she had been searching for. It wasn't something like the twin sisters. The man in the gray robe was hinting at Ning Wanga herself. Her biggest opponent was herself. The root cause of her missing memory and the final solution also depended on her. Ning Wanga looked into the distance with a complicated look in her eyes. She muttered to herself, I have checked many times. My divine soul is not sealed by anyone, or should I say, by my past self. But why did the hint in this illusion reflect such a scene? She suddenly turned to look at Wang Lin. I once put myself into the nether dream illusory realm, and tried to awaken the deepest thoughts in my heart. But I didn't succeed. In terms of pure power of dream path projection, my nether dream illusory realm should be stronger than the illusion you had just now. Wang Lin nodded calmly. That's right. Your spell is stronger and better at exploring mental state projection. My spell is strong in external restrictions, making it impossible for people to break free. He looked at Ning Wanga and said after a moment of silence, My spell is infused with the power of reincarnation. It can shatter people's memories of past lives or awaken them. When Wang Lin first comprehended the Yellow Springs spells, the first spell, Road to the Yellow Springs Condensed Bilyang Slope, had this effect. However, the effect depended on Wang Lin's own cultivation and the opponent's cultivation. Now, as Wang Lin's cultivation got higher and higher, his understanding of Dao skills and divine powers became deeper and deeper. Similar spells were also gradually infused into other divine powers and spells. The illusion he had created just now had this effect. Wang Lin could also faintly feel that Ning Wanga's memory wasn't sealed by others or herself. It was just that her divine soul seemed to be broken and missing. Ning Wanga said, 4,000 years ago, since I could remember, I was already in the Dao fusing realm. I'm not a child who had just reincarnated. Her gaze was a little sad. Even if it's related to my past life, I have no memory of anything from when I was born until I reached the Tao fusing realm. All the common knowledge of life, my Tao skills and cultivation, these are the only things I can remember. Other than that, I don't have any trace of anything else. Even my current name is something I came up with later. When Wang Lin heard this, he also frowned slightly. From Ningguang's description, her Tao fusing was like a reincarnation. However, such a spell had never existed in the world before. It was also completely incompatible with Ningguang's current path of serene dreams. If the original spirit of a Mahayana-grade Dharma treasure escaped calamity and reincarnated, it would also have to cultivate from the beginning. It was impossible for a Mahayana-grade Dharma treasure to become a Tao-fusing realm cultivator with just one reincarnation. Ningguang turned to look at Wang Lin. "Where are your junior brothers and the rest?" Wang Lin said, "They have already awakened. They are in the small world created by my magic power." Silently, Ningguang looked at him and suddenly asked, "Do you think that everything in front of you now is real? Everything that happened just now, you woke up from the serene dream's illusory dimension, and then sucked me into your mystique. After that, I escaped, and then we communicated with each other. All of this, is it another layer of illusion? Was everything that happened before just an illusion?" Wang Lin said indifferently, "Reality and illusion are unpredictable. When all the demands of the state of mind can receive a reasonable and comprehensive response, is there a big difference between reality and illusion in this world? Perhaps our entire Tianyuan world is fake. It is all man-made. We are all living in a dream weaved by someone else. However, this idea is also our illusion. We can imagine that this world is weaved and created by someone else. The person who created the Tianyuan world also exists in our dreams and illusions." Ningguang glanced at him. "This idea of yours is a little self-deceiving." At this moment, Wang Lin did not have the slightest trace of coldness and ruthlessness. His expression was calm and indifferent. There was even a hint of a rare smile on his face. The person who weaved our world, is he living in the world weaved by someone else? Chapter 1151. When Ningguang heard what Wang Lin said, she looked at him with slight surprise, but Wang Lin looked calm. "I often wonder if everything I'm experiencing right now and everything I've experienced in the past is just a dream." After a long time, Ningguang shook her head and her expression returned to normal. "And you compared to me are more." She paused for a moment and looked at Wang Lin. "Crazier." Wang Lin didn't say a word. His expression didn't change at all, and he was as calm as still water. Ningguang shook her head and didn't continue this topic. She looked at Wang Lin and said, "What do you want to do next?" Wang Lin said indifferently, "Whether it's intentional or not, you know too many secrets of our sect through the dreams of me and fifth junior brother. With your cultivation and strength, you deserve the courtesy of our sect. But it's hard to predict whether you are a friend or a foe. From my original intention, I can't let you go easily." He looked at Ningguang with an indifferent expression, as if he was talking about something that should be done. Even though through the previous fight, he vaguely felt that Ningguang seemed to have started to go through the tribulation. If they really fought, he might not be able to keep Ningguang here alone. It would be even more difficult to kill or capture her. But if they really fought to the death, this was not a matter of personal honor. He definitely wouldn't fight one-on-one. At that time, he would use both the Xiantian God-sealing flag and the Tsangtian Daojian. As a primordial spirit incarnation realm cultivator, it was not shameful for him to use Dharma treasures against Ningguang, who had already started to go through the first tribulation. In a situation where it was 3 against 1, if Ningguang didn't have a powerful Dharma treasure with her, it would really be a problem for her to escape. Ningguang's expression was equally calm. "So," Wang Lin said indifferently, "this concerns the whole sect. You are not an ordinary person, so I won't make decisions on your own. My master can decide whether you stay or leave." Although he was very independent, Wang Lin could distinguish the priorities of the matter. Ningguang did not say anything. Wang Lin took out a talisman in front of her. This talisman was specially made by Lin Feng after he obtained the 2 immortal mountains of Penglai and Yingzhou. It was very inconvenient to use transcendence energy to send sound transmissions across the boundary of two different worlds. There were many obstructions, and the lower the cultivation of the cultivator, the more difficult it was. In the world, if the majority of cultivators were in different worlds, then the transcendence energy transmission would be directly cut off. For this reason, Xianmen Tianzong had specially made a batch of talismans for the people in Yinghai to communicate with the people in the divine land of the vast thousand worlds outside Yinghai. Wang Lin activated the spirit talisman, which turned into a purple light in the air. The purple light gradually formed a human figure. He was dressed in purple, and his hair was spread out. It was Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at Wang Lin and smiled. "Little Lin, what's the matter?" After Wang Lin told him everything in detail, Lin Feng was also quite surprised. Oh, he had heard of Ning Wanga's name before. She was one of the top 4 Dao integration realm itinerant cultivators in the human cultivation world of the Divine Land. She was Lord Scorching Sun, Zhuge Zhuge, who had become a guest in Xianmen Tianzong. Thousand Tree Duda, who had also participated in the Buddha exterminating war, and Lord Luofu, the owner of the Luofu Immortal Island in the East Sea, were known in the world. At the same time, she was also the most mysterious and low-key among the 4. It was rumored that no one had seen her real face. Moreover, it seemed that she was also the one with the highest Dharma realm among the 4. Not only was she in the Dao integration realm, but she had also started to experience the first tribulation, although it seemed that she had only experienced one tribulation. He looked at Ning Wanga, and Ning Wanga bowed. "Greetings, master of the Xianmen Gate." Lin Feng nodded. "Mengxian, you're too polite." Looking at Ning Wanga, many thoughts flashed through Lin Feng's mind in an instant. Her memory started to break and disappear 4,000 years ago? At this time, his eyes moved slightly and he looked at Ning Wanga. "Mengxian, do you intend to leave Yingxi and find another place to live?" Ning Wanga was naturally not surprised that Lin Feng knew about this. She nodded. "I have no intention of getting involved in any disputes. I just hope that I can cultivate by myself in peace. I hope that Master of Xianmen can be merciful." Lin Feng said. "For your Dharma, the most suitable place to cultivate is in Yingxi, right? There may not be another place as suitable as this one if you look for other places." Ning Wanga was silent. Lin Feng was speaking the truth. After a moment of silence, she looked up at Lin Feng. Lin Feng waved his hand. "I don't mean anything else. I'm just saying that you can stay in Yingxi and do whatever you want. Our sect will not make things difficult for you." Ning Wanga was slightly stunned again, but she quickly came back to her senses. She nodded at Lin Feng and said, "Thank you, Master of Xianmen, for your magnanimity. Ning Wanga is very grateful. I promise to keep my mouth shut about the secrets of your sect." Lin Feng nodded his head, his gaze turning towards Wang Lin's side. Although Wang Lin was a bit surprised by Lin Feng's decision, he did not raise any questions. The expression on his face did not change in the slightest. If the news is true, the time when the enchantress appeared in Tianhuang mainland, became famous, and became active was about 4,000 years ago, about 600 years after the war between the two worlds. Lin Feng's voice transmission sounded in Wang Lin's ears. Wang Lin's eyes narrowed slightly. At present, the most mysterious demon race in Tianhuang mainland, the Enchantress, and the most mysterious human race mighty figure in Divine Land, Ning Wanga, could not help but be concerned about the coincidence between the two. Perhaps it was really just a coincidence, but if it was not, there were a lot of secrets hidden in it. Lin Feng had only said one sentence, but Wang Lin already understood and didn't ask anything else. Instead, he opened his palm and showed a ring. It was the ring that was flashing with purple light from Nyekong Great Sage. It was not only in Ning Wanga's dream. In reality, after Wang Lin woke up and trapped Ning Wanga in an illusion, he also obtained the ring from Nyekong Great Sage, who was still in a deep sleep, and suppressed him. The power contained in the ring was very mysterious. Wang Lin's senior and junior brothers had once come to Mount Punglai under Lin Feng's guidance, and personally studied the heavenly Dao demon scriptures, and the power of Yudu's netherflower. Therefore, he was very sure that the ring was related to the Yudu race. Great Sage Zhu Jian, Great Sage Revolving Turtle, and the other great demons under the Enchantress wanted this item. Wang Lin said. Master, this item is very mysterious. I tried to analyze it, but the results were limited. I'm afraid it's another treasure related to the Yudu race that Golden Rock Great Sage got. He temporarily left it with Nyekong Great Sage for future use. Golden Rock went to the old site of Great Thunderclap Monastery to open up the black hole, and all sorts of changes happened. They were not what he could have predicted, but he also knew that the trip would be difficult, so he had to leave some backup plans for himself. This ring was probably one of them. However, it wasn't used for battle, but for something else. However, Nyekong Great Sage didn't know. This item was the focus of both sides' fight. Lin Feng took a look at it and said, Keep it safe and send it back to Yingzhou Celestial Mountain. Yes, Master. Disciple understands, Wang Lin said. The communication was cut off. Wang Lin turned his head and saw Ningguang's gaze also landing on the ring. Her gaze was a little complicated. There wasn't any greed or desire in her gaze, but confusion and confusion. Wang Lin understood her confusion. In the dream, he and Ningguang had used this ring to lead the way to chase the gray-clothed man. In the dream, the gray-clothed man had taken the ring and left behind traces that exposed his whereabouts. The ring seemed to have nothing to do with the gray-clothed man. However, the dream was a projection of Ningguang's own thoughts. Why was it the ring that established the connection between Ningguang and the gray-clothed man? There must be a reason behind it. Because Ningguang had lost her memory, she couldn't explain everything, just like how she couldn't explain what was going on with the gray-clothed woman. But this didn't stop Ningguang from having doubts. Wang Lin also lowered his head to look at the ring, trying to figure out the power within it. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat and he looked in another direction. Although Ningguang was a little dazed, she also sensed something at the same time. She looked in the same direction as Wang Lin. Outside the illusion that everyone was in, there was a violent wave of demonic power that kept raging. Ningguang stretched out her palm and swiped in the void. Suddenly, a light and shadow appeared in the void, showing the scene outside. A giant beast with the face of a human and the body of a leopard stood outside the illusion with a gloomy look. Its ears were like those of a cow, and it only had one eye. It held its own tail in its mouth and stared at the illusion that Wang Lin and the others were in without saying a word. It was the great sage Zhu Jian. Beside the great sage Zhu Jian, there was also a giant beast standing on each side. On the left was a strange snake with 1 head, 2 bodies, 6 legs, and 4 wings. It was the great sage Fei. On the right was a giant turtle with the head of a bird and the tail of a serpent. Its whole body was red and black. It was the great sage revolving turtle. Previously, the great sage Zhu Jian and the great sage revolving turtle had chased after the great sage of Nyekong into the Ying Sea. Unexpectedly, they continued to fight with the great sage of Nyekong in the process, which caused the space to be distorted. After entering the Ying Sea, they temporarily lost track of the great sage of Nyekong. So the 2 demons had to search again. The great sage Fei had been chasing after the great sage of Bifang. After chasing him away, he hurriedly rushed into the Ying Sea to meet up with the great sage Zhu Jian and the others. After searching for a long time, the group of great demons finally found the location of the illusion. In the illusory realm, Ningguang said, "The battle between you and me caused the control of the illusory realm to change hands several times. It created a huge fluctuation and became unstable. It was unable to seal and block the aura of the golden rock of the black sky, so they found us." Wang Lin nodded calmly. That's right. At this moment, the great sage Zhu Jian, who was outside, looked at the illusion for a while with one eye open. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and spat out a ball of light. The light gradually dissipated, revealing a pearl. The great sage Zhu Jian narrowed his eyes and chanted an incantation of unknown meaning. Many strange symbols started to light up on the surface of the pearl. The pearl's size started to shrink, as if it was melting into the void of the Ying Sea. However, streams of mysterious light surged out of the pearl and circled between heaven and earth. Chapter 1152. The great sage Zhu Jian's pearl kept shrinking in size as if it was melting. Rays of mysterious light were produced and attached to the illusion that Wang Lin, Ningguang, and the others were in. The illusionary realm that was originally shapeless and indistinguishable from the outside world suddenly rippled like water, revealing its own silhouette. During this process, the illusion began to disintegrate. Even Wang Lin and Ning Wanga were somewhat astonished when they saw this scene. After all, even Dao integration realm experts or greater demons at the astral soul fusion realm might encounter danger in this illusionary realm. Although the great sage Zhu Jian was a great demon in the first tribulation stage and had outstanding demonic powers, the Dao of transformation was not his forte. The main reason why he was able to break through the illusion so easily was undoubtedly because of the pearl in his hand. Ning Wanga looked at it carefully and nodded. It's the Shun Pearl. It's a Shun Pearl produced by a phantom puppet that had achieved the integration of stars and souls when it was alive. Wang Lin's expression was calm, but his eyes flickered slightly. Only the previous clan leader of the Illusion Puppet clan, Great Sage Illusion Puppet, has reached the realm of star soul fusion. However, he has already fallen for many years. I just didn't expect that the sea serpent pearls he produced would still exist today. This pearl was precisely the sea serpent pearl produced by the Great Saint Illusion Puppet all those years ago. It was capable of forming a formidable illusion, and when it encountered other illusions, it was capable of eliminating the false and retaining the true, causing it to be extremely miraculous. The power of the Shun Pearl would be consumed at different rates according to the illusion created, and the strength of the illusion broken. The consumption could not be replenished. If it was consumed completely, the Shun Pearl would also disappear. To break the powerful illusion that Wang Lin, Ning Wanga, and the others were in, the entire Shun Pearl had to be consumed. This was the Enchantress's collection, which he had entrusted to the great sage Zhu Jian. As the location of the operation was in the East Sea, which was not far from the entrance of the Ying Sea Realm Passage, the Enchantress had asked the great sage Zhu Jian to bring this treasure. Although neither the Enchantress nor the great sage Zhu Jian had the intention to enter the Ying Sea if it was not necessary, they had to be prepared. Now this thing played an irreplaceable role. The Shun Pearl became smaller and smaller until it was completely consumed and disappeared. The brilliance it emitted completely wiped out the illusion that Wang Lin and Ning Wanga were in. A cold light flashed in Wang Lin's eyes as he looked at the great sage Zhu Jian, Whirling Turtle Sage, and Fei Sage in front of him silently. After the illusion disappeared, the great sage Zhu Jian and the other demons could clearly sense the situation inside. Before Wang Lin, they had been following the great sage Zhu Jian's lead. They had followed the great sage Si. They had followed the great sage Zhu Jian great sage and Fei Sage clues. At this moment, the great sage Zhu Jian and the other demons frowned slightly when they saw Wang Lin's white hair fluttering in the wind and a cold expression on his face. This was the Ying Sea. Although it did not belong to Xianmen Tianzong, Xianmen Tianzong was the force with the greatest geographical advantage. It was not surprising that Wang Lin had appeared here. However, they could sense that the great sage Zhu Jian's demonic aura was faintly covered by Wang Lin. It seemed that the aura had fallen into Wang Lin's hands. This made the great sage Zhu Jian and the others frown. As for the personal disciples under Lin Feng, especially Wang Lin, who was known as one of the four heroes of the celestial sect, in the great Tianyuan world, be it the human clan or the demon clan, all had some understanding of them. Putting aside Wang Lin himself, as a great demon in the first tribulation stage, the great sage Zhu Jian felt that it was difficult to deal with him, but he was not afraid of him. The key was Lin Feng, who was standing behind Wang Lin, which made him hesitate. Ning Wanga stood beside Wang Lin. At this moment, in the eyes of others, she had regained her blurry appearance. Her body was shimmering with colorful lights, which were like water ripples that kept flowing. Other than the great sage Zhu Jian, who could vaguely feel that there was something unusual about her, the revolving turtle great sage and the Fei great sage could not see anything special about her. This was the most special thing about her. With their cultivation, eyesight, supernatural powers, and demonic aura, they could not see the depth of the other party. This meant that the other party was not simple. Seeing that Wang Lin and Ning Wanga were standing together as if they were companions, the great sage Zhu Jian and the other demons could not help but look more serious. The strength of the opponent was extraordinary. They might not be able to win quickly even if it was 3 against 2. If they delayed a little longer, the other experts of Xianmen Tianzong might arrive. If Lin Feng himself came here, it would be difficult for the three of them to even escape. The situation was delicate. Although the return of the Gautama Buddha from the black hole was beyond everyone's expectations, Lin Feng had successfully achieved his expected goal. The people of the Golden Rock Great Sage could not even protect themselves. If there were no major changes, they would basically announce their withdrawal from the war between the two realms. The situation was beginning to develop in the direction of the human clan. At least outside the mysterious sea, the situation in the vast thousand worlds was becoming more and more favorable to the human clan. As for Lin Feng himself, his actions were becoming more and more flexible. There was more room for planning and activities. The Heavenly Charm Great Sage was busy trying to kill the Golden Rock Great Sage, and her subordinates had also begun to wipe out the demon race under the Golden Rock Great Sage. Under such circumstances, it was obviously unwise to provoke the celestial sect of the celestial sects. For the sake of that ring, I have no choice but to offend Xianmen Tianzong. We must get that ring. If there are any unexpected changes, report to me, and I will personally come to deal with it. Thinking of the conversation he had with the enchantress before he left, the great sage Zhu Jian stared at Wang Lin with one eye, and a cold light flashed in his other eye. Slowly he looked at Wang Lin and said, "We must get that ring from Si Kong." Then he did not waste any more words. He held his long tail in his mouth and stood up. He stretched out his left arm, and black light gathered in his originally empty hand, forming a giant bow. The great sage Zhu Jian's right hand pulled the bowstring, and a black arrow formed. He knocked it on the bow and pointed it at Wang Lin. There was a black hole at the tip of the arrow that was devouring everything around it. As he loosened his right hand, white light shot out from the black hole, and a black and white light arrow shot out. It transcended time and space and shot directly at Wang Lin. From the moment the arrow left the bowstring to the moment it hit its target, there seemed to be no process. The great sage Zhu Jian shot the arrow, and his opponent was hit. Only experts who had a deep understanding of the power of time and space could see the arrow's trajectory. His cultivation has also improved compared to when he was in the Sea of Stars. Back then, although it was the great demon's clone that entered the Sea of Stars, Wang Lin had witnessed the intense battle between Shi Tianhao and the great sage Zhu Jian. Among the disciples under Lin Feng, Shi Tianhao was one of those who had the deepest understanding of time and space among those of the same cultivation level. It was easier for him to deal with great sage Zhu Jian than the others, but he was also surrounded by danger at that time. Wang Lin's understanding of time and space was not inferior to Shi Tianhao's, but his understanding of space and space was slightly inferior. However, he had his own ways to deal with the great sage Zhu Jian. The moment the illusion disappeared, Wang Lin used the 3 live stone. As soon as the great sage Zhu Jian moved, Wang Lin started to calculate the trajectory of the great sage Zhu Jian's attack. Then he used the ancient and present world divine art. The black and white door opened, and after analyzing the changes in time, it blocked the great sage Zhu Jian's attack trajectory. The void shook, and the wave-chasing demon arrow appeared in front of the ancient and present world divine art. The ancient and present world was almost penetrated, and it collapsed. However, the great sage Zhu Jian's arrow could not do anything to Wang Lin. The great sage Zhu Jian's only eye shone brightly. As expected, the disciples of Xianmen Tianzong are all extraordinary. Wang Lin took the great sage Zhu Jian's arrow head-on, and he did not feel good. Although he did not suffer any damage, he felt that it was not convenient for him to continue using the ancient and present world divine art. Although it was not obvious, if he continued to take the arrow head-on, the result would only get worse. In the near future, Wang Lin would not be able to use the ancient and present world divine art. By that time, it would be difficult for Wang Lin to fight the great sage Zhu Jian again. The crystal that guided the Yingzhou Celestial Mountain's power was broken, so it was up to him now. However, since he was in the Yingzhou Ocean, he still had the upper hand. At least, he did not have to worry about the illusions on the battlefield, and the great sage Zhu Jian and the other big demons had to pay attention to them. However, Wang Lin was not someone who would take a beating passively. After taking the great sage Zhu Jian's arrow, Wang Lin's eyes shone coldly. He made a hand seal, and the Tsangtian Daojian appeared next to him. The Tsangtian Daojian's treasure, the sword firmament, was formed by the great sage Zhu Jian's primordial spirit. He pointed his finger at the great sage Zhu Jian, and the northwest nether heavenly sword Dao of the great nine heavens magical sword was unleashed. Wang Lin was like a shadow, and it was hard for the great sage Zhu Jian to locate them. During the battle in the Sea of Stars, he and Shi Tianhao worked together to fight the great sage Zhu Jian, so he was familiar with this demon and had a lot of battle experience. Seizing this opportunity, Wang Lin and the Tsangtian Daojian took the initiative to attack the great sage Zhu Jian. The great sage Zhu Jian's physical strength was strong, and the demon arrows were terrifying. However, he was not good at defense, so he had to be careful of the fierce attacks from Wang Lin and the Tsangtian Daojian. As he summoned the Tsangtian Daojian, Wang Lin also summoned the mysterious sky god sealing flag. The purple flag fluttered in the wind, and as the flag flashed, the hall master of the underworld hall, Su Anda, appeared and fought with the Fei great sage. Ning Wanga glanced at Wang Lin, and after a moment of silence, he stopped the revolving turtle great sage, who wanted to help the great sage Zhu Jian. The great sage Zhu Jian said, "Old turtle, be careful. I'm afraid that person is skilled in illusory techniques." The revolving turtle great sage glanced at Ning Wanga with a doddering look. He decided not to help the great sage Zhu Jian. Instead, he unleashed his demonic power and turned it into a barrier, blocking the battlefield where Wang Lin and the great sage Zhu Jian were. Then, the revolving turtle great sage lay down on the ground and became a turtle that hit its head. He changed his target from helping the great sage Zhu Jian to stopping Ning Wanga from helping Wang Lin. Ning Wanga's illusory techniques and dream techniques were profound, and the revolving turtle great sage had never experienced them before. However, being in the Ying Sea, he had to be careful of these things at all times. At this moment he put all his effort into defense, and not only did he use his divine power and demon power to defend himself, but he also locked his mind to prevent himself from being tricked. Chapter 1153. Seeing the Tsangtian Daojian and the Xiantian God Sealing Banner, the great sage Zhu Jian, the Fei great sage, and the whirling turtle great sage frowned. These two great ascension grade Dharma treasures were extremely powerful. The Tsangtian Daojian had already reached the great ascension grade in ancient times, and had never encountered a great calamity. After a long period of cultivation, its strength was even stronger than many human Dao integration realm experts. Although the Xiantian God Sealing Banner itself had no combat power, the banner had bound the primordial spirits of many experts. Among them, the former Lord of the Underworld Hall, the youngest disciple of the King of the Underworld, Su Anda, was the most powerful. Even without a Dharma treasure, he could fight against most of the great demons at the unification of the stars and souls realm with his bare hands. In addition to the two great ascension grade Dharma treasures, Wang Lin's own mystical abilities and magic power were also incomparable to when he had just entered the primordial spirit realm. In particular, he had many strange and unpredictable techniques that shocked the great demons. However, the person who was even more unexpected to the great sage Zhu Jian and the others was Ning Wanga, an expert who had already begun to experience tribulations and was proficient in the illusory Dao and dream Dao. Attacking in an environment like the Ying Sea was impossible to defend against. They even had to be cautious when looking at their companions to prevent being trapped by the illusory Dao. When the battle really started, the great sage Zhu Jian realized that the situation was very awkward for them. Under the current conditions, even if no one else came to help Xianmen Tianzong, they would not be able to gain any advantage if they fought with Wang Lin and the others. Thinking of this, the great sage Zhu Jian's originally firm conviction wavered a little. He did not want to fight to the death with Wang Lin, at least not in the Ying Sea. Wang Lin looked at the other party coldly. He put his palms together and activated the supreme art of destruction again. The door of Emperor Yan's hall opened, and two wheels, one black and one white, spun rapidly inside. The white wheel suddenly disappeared, and the black wheel spun faster and faster. A terrifying black light was emitted from it, and with the help of the supreme art of destruction, it shot toward the great sage Zhu Jian. The great sage Zhu Jian snorted coldly, nocked an arrow, and shot a light arrow. It accurately hit the black light and blocked Wang Lin's attack. Unexpectedly, a radiance flashed above Wang Lin's head, and a door suddenly opened. It was half black and half white. The left half of the door was as black as ink, and the relief on it was exaggerated and distorted, giving off an absurd and exaggerated feeling. Meanwhile, the right half was as white as jade, and the style of the relief on the door was simple, but not crude. Instead, it gave off a natural feeling of simplicity and authenticity. The third realm of Wang Lin's four symbols realm, the true and false realm. The world of true and false blurred the boundaries between reality and illusion. It acted on the point where the black light from Wang Lin's Emperor Yan's hall and the great sage Zhu Jian's turbid wave demon arrow intersected. In that instant, both parties were frozen in place. In the next moment, the gate of the true and false world suddenly closed. As light and shadow flashed, the chasing wave demon arrow and the black light actually passed by each other without touching each other. The scene of the two colliding was like an illusion. The bubble burst, and everything ceased to exist, as if it had never happened. The great sage Zhu Jian's expression changed slightly, turning real into false. The changes of the Tao of true and false also depended on the difference in power levels between the two parties. Although the great sage Zhu Jian was not proficient in this Tao, he had come this far and cultivated to such a level. No matter how limited his knowledge of the great Tao of heaven and earth was, he still had a certain degree of exposure to them. A turbid wave demon arrow shot out, shaking time and space, and fusing all kinds of power and concepts. It was not an easy task to use the Tao of true and false to shake its existence. But now this scene appeared before the great sage Zhu Jian's eyes. The great sage Zhu Jian, who had been shaken by Wang Lin's true and false worlds, 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 true and false worlds transformation. However, after taking such an attack, the big bow in the great sage Zhu Jian's hand was directly distorted and could not maintain its original shape. The powerful nirvana death will also made the great sage Zhu Jian raise his eyebrows. Feeling the power concept of annihilating everything and returning everything to death, the great sage Zhu Jian snorted coldly and dispersed the big bow that was condensed from demon power in his hand. The flesh and blood on his left arm began to throb violently. Like a bird spreading its wings, two eerie white bones popped out from his left arm and fixed themselves on his wrist. They curved and extended in two directions like two huge white bone blades, drawing out two mysterious but eerie and mournful arcs. The two thick white bones that extended to both sides extended a dark red blood line from the top of each of them. They connected in the void between them and formed a blood-red bowstring. The great sage Zhu Jian plucked the bowstring with his right hand, and a white demon arrow that was mixed with traces of blood-red light instantly shot out. It urged Wang Lin to block the black light that was already close to him. However, this sudden turn of events caused his movements to pause for a moment. On the other side, the sword of the Way of the Heavens had already unleashed the sword path of the heavenly sword of the West. It turned into a beam of faint green light and approached great sage Zhu Jian, attacking him. The big bow that was attached to the great sage Zhu Jian's left arm seemed huge, but it was extremely flexible under his control. In just a twirl, it turned into balls of white light that shielded him tightly, not giving the Tsangtian Dao Jian any chance to escape. Wang Lin's face was expressionless as he continued to attack. He wanted to join forces with the Tsangtian Dao Jian to attack the great sage Zhu Jian. The great sage Zhu Jian in the white light suddenly leaped and broke through layers of void, increasing the distance between him and his opponent again. Wang Lin and the Tsangtian Dao Jian chased after him. Suddenly, the great sage Zhu Jian turned around and pulled the bone bow in his left arm. He plucked the bowstring with his right claw, and a few light arrows shot out. Facing the great sage Zhu Jian's sudden attack, Wang Lin and the Tsangtian Dao Jian did not dare to be careless. If they were hit by the turbid wave demon arrows, the consequences would be unpredictable. Wang Lin took a deep breath. The Yellow Spring's true water turned into the river of forgetfulness and flowed continuously. A huge black stone bridge appeared on the river. It was the Bridge of Helplessness. The black wheel in Emperor Yan's hall disappeared and was replaced by a white wheel. The surging white light landed on the Bridge of Helplessness, and lifted Wang Lin up to dodge the turbid wave demon arrows. He continued to chase after the great sage Zhu Jian, not stopping at all. Seeing this, the great sage Zhu Jian frowned, and his spine twitched. However, just as Wang Lin was dealing with the great sage Zhu Jian's sneak attack, his eyes suddenly flashed, and he felt his spiritual power becoming unstable. The dark void great sage had been hiding in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to escape. Not only did the enchantress value the ring, but the golden rock great sage also valued it. The dark void great sage would do his best to protect it, and not compromise with his opponent. However, now that the ring had been taken by Wang Lin, the dark void great sage would not ask for trouble. At this moment, he was seriously injured and had lost the ability to take back the ring. He was already very lucky to be able to leave this place safely. Without the ring in his hand, Wang Lin and the great sage Zhu Jian would not keep an eye on him while they were fighting. Although he was unwilling, the dark void great sage gave up the ring decisively and focused on escaping. The dark void great sage suddenly made a mess. He turned into a beam of golden light and shuttled around the bottom of the river of forgetfulness, flashing and churning violently. He wanted to break through the suppression of the Yellow Spring's true water and rush out from the bottom of the river. Wang Lin expressionlessly lowered his head to look at the golden light. Without saying anything, the Yellow Spring's pearl suddenly appeared and fell into the river of forgetfulness. The river of forgetfulness flowed ceaselessly, but the silent river water emitted a strong energy wave, but there was still no movement. However, the golden light at the bottom of the river became more and more sluggish. It was obvious that it was not as active as before. At this moment, the great sage Zhu Jian drew his bow and arrows. A few white light arrows mixed with blood-red light shot toward Wang Lin. Compared to before, the blood-red light was even more intense. Wang Lin had no choice but to stop temporarily and deal with the demon arrows. However, his heart stirred slightly. He vaguely felt that other people were approaching the area where the battle was taking place. Moreover, their strength was not ordinary. A corner of the void suddenly turned red. The next moment, the entire world in this corner collapsed. Red light flickered incessantly, but there were no flames. However, the scorching temperature made people feel ominous, as if it was a sign of a fire. A giant bird that looked like a red-crowned crane, but only had one leg flew out. Its body was blue with red spots and its long beak was white. Seeing this demon, Wang Lin was slightly surprised. Baifeng. This one-legged crane was Baifeng, and it was the chief of the Baifeng tribe, the current Baifeng great sage. She was a great demon on the union of stars and souls. She had always been a capable general under the command of the Golden Rock great sage. Now that she had suddenly appeared here, people couldn't help but pay attention to her. The great sage Zhuejian, the great sage Fei, and the great sage revolving turtle didn't stop attacking, but a portion of their attention fell on the great sage of Baifeng. As the great sage Fei fought with the hall master of the underworld hall, Su Anda, he looked at the great sage of Baifeng strangely. Before this, the great sage Zhu Jian and the great sage revolving turtle had intercepted the great sage of Baifeng, and he had been in charge of dealing with the great sage of Baifeng. After he escaped, no one knew where he went. Now he suddenly appeared in the Ing Sea and accurately found this place. Could it be that the Thunder Abyss Golden Rock escaped from the Enchantress Emperor and came here with her to help him? No, it can't be. The Golden Rock doesn't have that Yudu skeleton anymore, and the Enchantress Emperor already has a way to restrict his speed. There's a 90% chance that he won't be able to escape. The great sage Fei stared at the great sage of Baifeng. The appearance of the Fei caused a great drought in the world. The appearance of Baifeng also caused fires. Both sides, one crane and one snake, had fought numerous times. The great sage Fei saw that the great sage of Baifeng's expression was calm, and his heart couldn't help but stir. If she didn't come with the great sage of Golden Rock, that means... As he was thinking, the great sage of Baifeng looked around and didn't say anything. Instead, she suddenly opened her mouth, and rays of multicolored light flew out from her mouth, illuminating the world. After the multicolored light flew into midair, it suddenly dispersed and transformed into 12 streams of light that surrounded the void around everyone. As the 12 streams of light extended, they were like 12 pillars of light that supported the heaven and earth. being surrounded by these 12 pillars of light. The sea region in the Ing Sea seemed to be sealed off and became an independent world. Numerous images floated in the pillars of light. Azure Dragon, Phoenix, Qilin, Black Tortoise, True Ho, Heavenly Devil Ape, Extreme Spirit Divine Monkey, and so on were 12 kinds of extremely top-notch great demons. Each of them occupied a pillar of light, surrounding and looking down on the people in this world. When the great sage of Zhujian and the other great demons saw this, smiles instantly appeared on their faces. The great sage of Fei looked at the great sage of Baifeng. Since you have also submitted to the Enchantress Emperor, that means, slowly, the great sage of Baifeng opened his mouth and said, the great sage of Golden Rock has already been killed by the Enchantress Emperor. Chapter 1154. The Baifeng Great Sage's first words after appearing caused everyone present to fall silent. The golden light formed by the Baifeng Great Sage, who had been suppressed by Wang Lin at the bottom of the River of Forgetfulness, began to struggle even more violently, wanting to rush out of the River of Forgetfulness. For a moment, even Wang Lin could not stop him. The Baifeng Great Sage glanced at the golden light, lowered her head slightly, and said softly, Wukong, you have to think carefully about what your golden-winged rock clan should do next. 2 images of light and shadow were reflected in her eyes. The first image of light and shadow originated from her own experience. In the image, a chaotic and blurry figure, whose silhouette could barely be seen, appeared in front of the Baifeng Great Sage. Although the figure's appearance could not be seen clearly, the terrifying fluctuations of power and aura indicated that it was the Enchantress. The Enchantress spread out one hand, and above his palm floated a ball of golden light. Within the ball of light, there was an existence that shone brightly, like a talisman emblem. Seeing this talisman, the Baifeng Great Sage, who was at the bottom of the River of Forgetfulness, suddenly stopped struggling. His whole person seemed to be stunned. Wang Lin could sense through the River of Forgetfulness that the Baifeng Great Sage was exuding a sense of disbelief, shock, and despair. Wang Lin looked at the ball of golden light and understood. It's the real spirit divine tattoo of the Golden Rock Great Sage. The Baifeng Great Sage in the light and shadow clearly recognized this item, and was so shocked that she could not speak. When she came back to her senses, her eyes flickered continuously, and she was silent in thought. In the image, the Enchantress did not seem to be in a hurry. Instead, she flicked her finger lightly, and a spot of light flew in front of the Baifeng Great Sage. The spot of light unfolded, and it was also an image of light and shadow. This image of light and shadow was the same as the scene projected by the Baifeng Great Sage's other eye at this moment. The scene presented by her other eye was a reproduction of the scene shown by the Enchantress. In this image, layers of fog spread out, covering the sky, and in the chaotic fog, there was a constantly flickering golden light. However, no matter how hard the golden light moved, it could not break through the obstruction of the fog. Wang Lin narrowed his eyes slightly. The golden figure in the mist was much stronger than Neptune Great Sage. Whether it was speed or strength, it was superior in all aspects. That kind of speed completely surpassed the reaction speed of most people in the world, as if the boundaries of time and space were blurred. The speed of a person's thoughts was extremely fast, but the speed of this golden light was even faster than a person's thoughts. When a person's speed reached a certain level, even if he had weaknesses, openings, and flaws, they would become insignificant, because the opponent would not have the time to discover his weaknesses, openings, and flaws. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. The loopholes and flaws in the previous instant had disappeared in the next instant. Perhaps they had been replaced by other questions, but if one wanted to capture these new flaws, they would no longer exist in the next instant. Those with powerful divine sense such as Wang Lin might be able to detect the flaws and loopholes, but after discovering them, it was too late to put them into action, so they could only watch the opportunity slip away from their eyes. This was the case with the golden light in front of him at this moment. It was naturally Golden Rock Great Sage. At the same level of cultivation, the number of experts who could have such speed could be counted on one's fingers. The extreme speed he was displaying right now was actually faintly a bit faster than when he faced Yan Nanlai and Lin Feng in the black hole. With such speed, he could even fight against experts in the Dharma ending realm. Some experts in the Dharma-ending realm, or experts in the Dharma-ending realm with magical powers, would also find it very difficult to catch the Golden Rock Great Sage's traces. It could be imagined that if this demon could completely complete the initial ordeal and enter the Dharma-ending realm, his cultivation would certainly be even more powerful, and his speed would be even more terrifying. But obviously, the enchantress had long been prepared for this. That ball of fog was formed by the enchantress's magical powers. After it spread out, it firmly trapped the Golden Rock Great Sage, making it impossible for him to escape. Wang Lin carefully observed it, and found that this ball of demon fog was different from the space boundary that the revolving turtle saint had used to seal the space and block the void saint. The revolving turtle saint's space boundary was equivalent to a wall, limiting the void saint's movement space to a certain area. At the same time, it prevented him from breaking through the void boundaries to escape to the void battlefield, or the dark void outside the vast thousand domains. This ball of demon fog was everywhere within its coverage area. No matter where the Golden Rock Great Sage rushed to, the demon fog kept pressing on him from all directions. From the perspective of Wang Lin and the others, the golden light that the Golden Rock Great Sage had transformed into was still majestic and unfathomable. His speed was so fast that it was hard for the eyes to follow him. But in reality, within the demon fog, he seemed to be struggling to move. In the eyes of the enchantress, there was no speed to speak of. Instead, he seemed to be moving very slowly. Wang Lin looked at the ball of strange demon fog, and thought to himself that this was the tip of the iceberg, that the enchantress had finally revealed his strength. He suddenly thought of something and glanced at Ning Wanga from the corner of his eye. He saw that Ning Wanga was staring blankly at the ball of demon fog with a puzzled look in her eyes. In the image of light and shadow, the demon fog separated them. Wang Lin and the others could not see the reaction of the Golden Rock Great Sage in the fog. They could only see that the power that the Golden Rock Great Sage was unleashing was getting stronger and stronger. He was really starting to fight with his life on the line. A layer of purple light had already been plated around the golden light, turning it purplish gold. As it went on, the purple color became more and more intense. The entire light finally turned purple, dazzling and terrifying. Everyone who was watching felt their hearts sink, even though they were just looking at the traces left behind by the light and shadow. But the demon fog that surrounded him did not dissipate. Within the fog, streams of light could be vaguely seen pulsating, like a huge net. The chaotic and blurry light on the net kept moving and jumping, causing the trapped purple light to be unable to break free. It was like a flying insect stuck in a spider's web. Suddenly, a layer of purple light appeared on the net of light. It was not dazzling and was faint, but similar to the purple light that appeared on the body of the Golden Rock Great Sage. It was as if they came from the same source. This purple light disappeared in a flash, and the purple light on the body of the Golden Rock Great Sage suddenly became brighter. In the center of the purple light, there was also a golden light flashing. Thousands of golden lights suddenly burst out, like a golden rainstorm that swept through the world. Between the golden rainstorm, a layer of purple light enveloped the area and spread in all directions. The light veins in the demon fog broke one by one and then shattered and dissipated, as if they were torn apart by the golden rainstorm. Wherever the rainstorm passed, the thick layers of fog gradually dispersed. It was hit by the dense light rain and could not continue, so it could only dissipate helplessly. Seeing this, the Zhujian Great Sage, the Fei Great Sage, and the Revolving Turtle Great Sage were not dispirited or disappointed. Instead, they looked at each other and laughed together. They looked extremely happy. As for the Bifang Great Sage, he was silent. The golden light that the Niekong Great Sage had transformed into, which was suppressed at the bottom of the River of Forgetfulness in Wang Lin, shook violently again. It gave off a feeling of complete despair and desperation. In the image of light and shadow, the demon fog dissipated, revealing two figures, one big and one small, facing each other from afar. The big figure was like a mountain, standing between heaven and earth. The feathers on its body were golden and shiny, and there were 3 black feathers on its forehead. Its eyes were also pitch black, and its pupils flashed with a demonic golden light. It was the Golden Rock Great Sage. The smaller figure on the opposite side looked no bigger than an ordinary person. compared to the body of the Golden Rock Great Sage. It was so small that it was disproportionately small. This figure was chaotic and blurry, and only a silhouette could be seen. It was the enchantress. But what was different from before was that there was a broken dark cloud above the head of the enchantress. At this moment, it was condensing again. The scattered clouds in the surroundings continued to converge on the top of her head, once again condensing into a dark cloud. The Golden Rock Great Sage did not seem to be injured at all. His breath was still steady, and his eyes were still sharp. But deep in his eyes, there was a look of regret. "You win, Tianmei," the Golden Rock Great Sage said silently. The next moment, his body suddenly flashed with golden light. His whole body seemed to have completely turned into light, turning into a huge light shadow. Then the light shadow was broken bit by bit, scattering in the surrounding void. The body of the Golden Rock Great Sage seemed to have turned into a huge sand sculpture, disappearing with the wind. The sand peeled off one by one, and the speed was getting faster and faster. A rain of light seemed to fall from the heavens and earth beneath him. The Golden Rock Great Sage's gaze was calm, cold and sharp as ever. There was no anger or unwillingness, only regret and disappointment. Although his race of golden-winged rocks had been famous in the vast land of Heaven Wasteland for a long time, they had never been the strongest race. Occasionally, because their ancestors had been subdued by Buddha and turned into the Great Rock Wisdom King, they had even been ridiculed by the other demon races. It was only until the generation of the Golden Rock Great Sage, who had devoted himself to planning and putting in a lot of effort, did they see an unprecedented revival. Other than the phoenix and the Kuanpeng that was protected by the phoenix, most of the other bird-type demons had been taken under his command. The golden-winged rocks had also produced many strong practitioners. He had obtained many opportunities, and Yudu Minghua had reappeared because of him. The remains of Yudu had caused the other great demons of the Age of Decline to be cautious and not to touch him easily. He had also obtained a portion of the flesh and blood of Golden Cicada, which allowed the strength of himself and the strong practitioners under him to grow together. After many years of hard work, the Golden Rock Great Sage had become what he was today. But now success or failure was all for naught. The main force of the Taishu Temple and the Haotian Mirror had left the Divine Land to enter the mysterious sea. Lin Feng's true body had arrived at the ancestral land of the primordial devil apes, Spirit Abyss Mountain. The Divine Land was empty, so he had taken the chance to open up the black hole above the Great Thunderclap Monastery's ancestral land. He had obtained a large amount of pre-celestial primordial essence left behind after Yuhuang Tianhai's death, which should have been the cornerstone for him to advance further. If it wasn't for Lin Feng's unexpected return to the Divine Land, if it wasn't for Lin Feng's special methods to resolve the threat of the remains of Yudu, and most importantly, if it wasn't for Buddha setting up a ritual to obtain a large amount of pre-celestial primordial essence, Golden Rock Great Sage would have gained a lot from this trip. But it was a pity that there were no ifs in this world. One wrong step would lead to many wrong steps. A small change could cause a series of chain reactions, causing the situation to far exceed the expectations of ordinary people. In the war between the two worlds, all the top strong practitioners had gathered. They stared at everyone except themselves. If anyone showed a flaw, they could be wiped out at any time. Not long after the war started, the first strong force to retreat appeared. The people of the Golden Rock Great Sage collapsed. Chapter 1155. Watching the Golden Rock Great Sage's huge body gradually disintegrate, Wang Lin's eyes were indifferent. His attention was focused on the enchantress in the image of light and shadow. He saw the dark cloud above the enchantress's head gradually merge into her blurry figure. The image shown by the Baifeng Great Sage's eye stopped there, while the other eye showed the appearance of the enchantress coming to the Baifeng Great Sage. The Heavenly Charm Great Sage's finger tapped lightly on the image of light and shadow, which was also the content just now. Seeing this scene and the real spirit divine inscription of the Golden Rock Great Sage on the Heavenly Charm Great Sage's hand, the Baifeng Great Sage already understood the situation at that time without the Heavenly Charm Great Sage saying anything more. She was silent for a long time. After a sigh, she slightly bent her slender neck and lowered her head to the enchantress to show her submission. The enchantress said, "Take this treasure to find Mo Ling and Zhu Jian. Nothing must go wrong with the Niekong golden rock and the thing in his hand. If you meet the people of Xianmen Tianzong in Yinghai, there is no need to avoid them except for the master of the celestial sect." A stream of light fell from the enchantress's hand to the Baifeng great sage. The Baifeng great sage took the stream of light and wanted to say something, but stopped on second thought. The enchantress continued in a low and hoarse voice, "I will go to the deep soul mountain in infinite wasteland and restrain the master of the celestial sect from returning to the deep soul mountain. He seems to have the ability to swap places with his doppelganger across two worlds. But compared to Yinghai, he still values Yujing Mountain more. Don't try to get any ideas about Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. You can do whatever you want in other aspects. Prioritize the thing in the Niekong Golden Rock's hand." The Baifeng great sage lowered his head and replied, "Yes, Enchantress Emperor." At this point, the image of light in the Baifeng great sage's eye also stopped and disappeared. Wang Lin looked around at the 12 huge light pillars that surrounded them. Is this the light that the enchantress gave to the Baifeng great sage? Wang Lin's gaze turned slightly solemn as he looked at the figures of the greater demons floating in the 12 light pillars, and sensed the changes in the surrounding spirit qi. This place seems to have isolated the flow of spirit qi in the sanctuary ocean, turning this place into an independent world. The sanctuary ocean could be seen everywhere. The white clouds that lingered in front of everyone gradually dissipated and disappeared without a trace. The undulating surface of the sea below seemed to have frozen, isolated from everyone as if they were in a different world. Wang Lin frowned. Why does this look a little like the demon race's 12 sacred heavens wonderful flower formation? Ever since the news of Tenryu Zhen's mid-tribulation was confirmed, the war between the two worlds could break out at any time. Xianmen Tianzong and the others had also gained a better understanding of the demons in Infinite Mainland. Although he had never seen it with his own eyes, Wang Lin could still recognize the 12 huge light pillars in front of him. It was extremely similar to the legendary 12 Sacred Heavens Wonderful Flower Formation. The 12 Sacred Heavens Wonderful Flower Formation was the same as the 9 Glory Sky-Shattering Array. It was a top-notch array formation of the demon race and had extraordinary power. The conditions to set it up were also extremely harsh, but it had endless power. However, ever since the war between the two worlds, this array formation had gradually disappeared. No one expected it to be in the hands of the enchantress. In the war between the two worlds, the enchantress had also gradually begun to reveal the power he had accumulated, which was shocking. Wang Lin sized it up carefully. It's not a complete array formation. It's just a projection of the array formation. It can't really block the void of the Ying Sea. Be it inside or outside, it can be broken with just a slight movement. The Baifeng Great Sage's expression was calm. It's indeed just the power of a projection. It's not the real 12 Sacred Heavens Wonderful Flower Formation. However, the array formation in the enchantress's hands is the real deal. She let out a long cry and chanted an incantation. A large amount of light flew out of her body and was absorbed by the 12 light pillars around her. A large amount of light condensed into talisman characters in the sky. They were mysterious and unfathomable, imprinted in the void. Wang Lin's gaze focused. Among the 12 light pillars, 4 of them became increasingly dazzling. The 4 light pillars that reached into the sky showed the 4 major demon races. They were the Azure Dragon, which was also the Primordial Sky Dragon, the Primordial Demon Ape race's Extreme Spiritual Monkey, Hun Dun of the 4 Ferocious Beasts, and the Golden Winged Rock. The Primordial Sky Dragon was nowhere to be seen. Its entire body was shrouded in majestic golden auspicious clouds, exuding a feeling that made one's heart palpitate. Within the golden auspicious clouds, a pair of eyes appeared. When the eyes were open, the sky was bright and it was day. When the eyes were closed, the sky was dark and it was night. It was the Candle Dragon's demonic realm. However, it was also presented on the Primordial Sky Dragon. It displayed the changes of time and the 4 seasons. It was extremely profound. As for the Extreme Spiritual Monkey, it was completely white and had a pair of faint blue eyes. Its figure was erratic and unpredictable. Not to mention the 12 Sacred Heavens Wonderful Flower Formation. Even the Yangtze and the entire Great Thousand World seemed to not be able to contain it. In the third light pillar, there was an incomparably huge beast. It looked like a yellow sack and was red like elixir fire. It had 6 legs and 4 wings, but it did not have a face. As this huge beast breathed, the void shattered and turned into nothingness. It was the chaos that was known as the 4 ferocious beasts, along with the Taotai, Taowu, and Xiongqi. In the fourth light pillar, there was a golden-winged rock. Its figure was erratic, sometimes transforming into a huge golden rock, and sometimes transforming into a stream of light. It kept flashing in the void at an extreme speed, blurring time and space. These 4 light pillars became more and more dazzling. Even the other 8 light pillars were gradually disappearing. The Baifeng Great Sage let out a long cry. Strange syllables seemed to reverberate between heaven and earth. The syllables were not in the human language, but through his divine consciousness, Wang Lin could vaguely figure out the meaning. Time and space will wonderful flower formation. These 4 light pillars gathered together and directly blurred the boundary power of the void where everyone was. At this moment, the space suddenly changed. It was actually going to transfer all of them out of the Yangtze. Wang Lin's eyes were cold as he attacked the Baifeng Great Sage and the huge demon formation. This time, it was the Zhujian Great Sage's turn to stop him. The Zhujian Great Sage drew his longbow made of white bones and took a deep breath. His blood and qi were vibrating all over his body. A large amount of blood and qi emerged on the surface of his majestic corporeal body and turned into white light arrows in the Zhujian Great Sage's right claw. The tips of these light arrows were all blood red, and their killing intent soared into the sky. As the Zhujian Great Sage waved his hand, a large number of white light blood arrows shot toward Wang Lin. In the face of such a large number of turbid wave demon arrows, even if Wang Lin had the help of the Tsangtian Daojian, he had to stop temporarily. Otherwise he would be injured by the demon arrows. Wang Lin's face was expressionless, and his eyes were firm. In the face of the arrow rain in front of him, he did not choose to retreat. Layers of light flickered above his head, and the stone of 3 lives appeared. On the mirror-like stone surface, mysterious trajectories appeared, capturing the paths of the Zhujian Great Sage's turbid wave demon arrows. Because the Zhujian Great Sage's cultivation was profound, even Wang Lin could not accurately determine the trajectories. However, he could only make a rough prediction, and it was already of great help, allowing him to dodge the arrows one after another. At the same time, the mystiques of the ancient and modern world were also unleashed. The gate opened, collecting a portion of the turbid wave demon arrows that Wang Lin could not dodge in time. The bridge of helplessness appeared under Wang Lin's feet, helping him to move forward. He wanted to pass the Zhujian Great Sage and attack the Baifeng Great Sage and the 12 Heavenly Wonders array design. The gate of Emperor Yan's hall opened, and the white wool disappeared. The black wool spun at an unprecedented speed. But at this moment, a cold light suddenly flashed in the Zhujian Great Sage's eyes. The white bones that extended to both sides of his left wrist, which were like scimitars, suddenly retracted and returned to the flesh of his arm. Next, he patted the spine at the back of his head. Black light flashed, and another huge bow that was formed from white bones appeared in his claws. This huge bow was even larger, and its segments were like the Zhujian Great Sage's spine that had been extracted. With a curve, it became a huge bow. A dark red line of blood shot out and landed on the huge bow. The Zhujian Great Sage slashed his claws, creating an arrow of blood, and knocked it on the huge white bone bow. This was an arrow that was completely blood red, without any other color. It contained a murderous and vicious aura that had never been seen since the Zhujian Great Sage and Wang Lin exchanged blows. The Zhujian Great Sage let out a low growl. He loosened his claws, and the dark red blood arrow turned into a beam of bloody light and shot out. Even Wang Lin's stone of 3 lives couldn't catch a trace of it. Wang Lin's eyes narrowed slightly. If it was the turbid wave demon arrow from before, he had already made up his mind to take this arrow head-on and break through the Zhujian Great Sage's blockade. Even if he was injured, he would first break the 12 Heavenly Wonder array design that was in operation, and stop the Zhujian Great Sage's large-scale teleportation. However, Facing this extremely ferocious blood arrow that was condensed from the Zhujian Great Sage's entire strength, he wouldn't have an easy time if he took it head-on. If it was a life-and-death battle with the Zhujian Great Sage, Wang Lin wouldn't be afraid. However, if he was hit by this arrow, he wouldn't be able to stop the activation of the demon design. That was the key to the battle. Wang Lin wasn't afraid of death, but that didn't mean he was willing to suffer unnecessary losses. The black roulette in Emperor Yan's hall suddenly disappeared and was replaced by the white roulette. The huge, pitch-black hall was covered in a layer of white light. It suddenly swept across the air and blocked Great Sage Zhujian's blood arrow. The blood arrow exploded and turned into a huge demonic vortex. It spun continuously like a huge beast that could swallow the heavens and earth. This huge beast directly swallowed Wang Lin's Emperor Yan's hall and pounced towards Wang Lin himself. Wang Lin's expression didn't change. The gate to the ancient and modern realm above his head opened again and collided with the huge beast-like demonic vortex. The rapidly spinning demonic vortex seemed to gradually stop, and the speed of its rotation slowed down. However, from the gradually slowing vortex, a large number of turbid wave demon arrows with weaker strength shot out again. The ancient and modern realm couldn't hold on any longer and shattered. There were even more demon arrows that shot out towards Wang Lin. Wang Lin's expression turned slightly cold. The bridge of helplessness lifted him up and dodged to the side, but a demon arrow still pierced through his arm. In addition, there were 3 more turbid wave demon arrows nailed onto the bridge of helplessness, gradually breaking the huge black stone bridge into 4 pieces. However, Songtian Daojian had already taken this opportunity to attack the Baifeng Great Sage and the demon design. However, a spatial barrier suddenly blocked in front of him. It was the mystique of the revolving turtle Great Sage. Chapter 1156. Seeing that the revolving turtle sage was blocking their way, Wang Lin and Jian Songtian frowned and looked to the side. There they saw a scene that made their hearts sink. Ning Wanga wasn't attacked, but she didn't attack the revolving turtle sage either. She stood alone in the void, and the colorful lights around her kept flashing, but it looked very chaotic. What was even more chaotic was Ning Wanga's eyes. Her eyes had no focus at all, and were filled with struggle and confusion. When the great sage of Baifeng appeared and released the projection of the 12 sacred heavens' wonderful flower formation, Ning Wanga's mood was already a little off. She felt the demonic aura and the fluctuation of divine sense and thoughts contained in the demonic formation, which made her feel confused. When the formation was completely activated, and the 4 powers of the demon clan, who were proficient in the profound principles of time and space, activated the changes of the time and space wonderful flower formation, the fluctuations of the power of the time and space wonderful flower formation also reached its peak. Even though she had already begun to experience the tribulation, she still couldn't maintain a calm state of mind. Ning Wanga was proficient in illusions and dreamcraft. Her spirit and state of mind were originally stronger than other cultivators of the same realm. When she fell into the dream realm created by Wang Lin, other than the last moment when her state of mind was completely out of balance, she could still maintain a calm state of mind when she was in the dream realm, or when she broke free from the dream realm and found out that she had fallen into Wang Lin's hands. But at this moment, the fluctuations of the mana around Ning Wanga were chaotic. She seemed to have fallen into madness. She had almost never experienced such an experience in the thousands of years that she could remember. But now, she was really in such a situation. It was as if she had been possessed by a demon. But her sudden change had also caused trouble for Wang Lin and Songtian Daojian. Although Ning Wanga had obviously lost the power to fight, the revolving turtle sage didn't take the opportunity to attack her. Instead, he blocked the attack of Songtian Daojian for the Baifeng Great Sage. On the other side, Wang Lin had risked his own injuries to stop the Great Sage Zhujian. At the same time, he had actually drawn all of the Great Sage Zhujian's attention, fighting for an opportunity for the Songtian Daojian. Unfortunately, this opportunity was destroyed by the Great Sage Revolving Turtle. Wang Lin's turbid wave demon arrow was equivalent to taking it for nothing. Under the urgency of the situation, Wang Lin had no time to investigate Ning Wanga's sudden change. In Emperor Yan's hall, the ancient and modern world and the Bridge of Helplessness were destroyed consecutively. At the instant when the turbid wave demon arrow was about to hit him, there was a flash of light above his head. Another door opened. This was the mystique of the true and false world. The resolute method of turning fake into real allowed Wang Lin to blur the boundary between reality and illusion, forcibly erasing the fact that the turbid wave arrow had pierced through his arm. However, the great sage Zhujian had fought with Wang Lin for a while. He knew that this white-haired youth's methods were deliberately unpredictable and ever-changing. He had a deep understanding of the Tao of changing reality and illusion. Therefore, at this moment, although the great sage Zhujian was a little dispirited, under the activation of his spiritual consciousness, the arrow that had finally hit Wang Lin underwent a new change. The arrow that was formed from demonic power suddenly exploded and turned into a turbulent flow of demonic aura. At the same time that Wang Lin's mystique of the true and false world was activated, the arrow itself also underwent a change. The original reality changed to another kind of reality. Regardless of whether it was the spiritual power of Wang Li's true and false world, or the great sage Zhujian's spiritual consciousness controlling the demonic arrow, they all happened at the same time. This caused the effect of the true and false world to change the reality of an event to be confused and interfered with. It was unable to play its intended role. The demonic arrow that had pierced through Wang Lin's arm disappeared. However, the demonic power that had exploded had torn off one of Wang Lin's arms. Light flashed and flowed in the huge crack. It was extremely difficult to heal it. Wang Lin's current form was the human form of his primordial spirit. He did not have real flesh and blood. The light flowing in the wound was the essence of his great path. Wang Lin, who had been injured by the great sage Zhujian, continued to move forward. He ignored the great sage Zhujian and continued to attack the great sage Baifeng. He wanted to stop the wonderful time and space will formation from activating. His expression was cold and indifferent. His gaze was firm as if he was not affected by his injury at all. Since he was already injured, he could not let this injury become worthless. Although the great sage Zhujian had injured him, the arrow just now had consumed a lot of his blood and energy. Under such circumstances, he could still protect himself. He wanted to stop Wang Lin, but his movements were inevitably a beat too slow. Wang Lin's target was still the great sage Baifeng, and the wonderful time and space will formation that was operating. As he had said before, this formation was only a projection of the real formation. It was not stable and would shatter if it suffered a certain amount of attack. On the other side, Wang Lin urged the Xiantian sealing flag with his mind. The Xiantian sealing flag fluttered in the wind, and rays of light flowed continuously. Su Anda, the lord of the underworld hall, who was under the control of the Xiantian sealing flag, narrowed his eyes slightly. He looked coldly at Wang Lin, but he had no choice but to change his target. He also attacked the great sage Baifeng and the wonderful time and space will formation, completely ignoring the great sage Fei Yi's attack aimed at him. The great sage revolving turtle let out a low cry and crouched in the void. A large number of black and red talisman patterns appeared on his mottled turtle shell. These talismans flashed together and expanded with a rumble, turning into a huge barrier of light that seemed to envelop everyone within it. It first resisted the further stabs of the sword of the heavens, and then it blocked Su Anda's attack. However, the barrier of light was also shattered. A large number of sword lights and black flowing light bombarded the great sage revolving turtle's body. The old turtle shrank his limbs and head, and used all his strength to defend against the attacks of the man and the treasure. Even though he was proficient in the way of space and had an extremely strong defense, he was still suffering from the attacks. There were even faint cracks on his turtle shell. But this slight delay allowed the great sage Fei Yi's attack to fall on Su Anda. It immediately injured the former lord of the underworld hall, which made Su Anda feel a little depressed. Meanwhile, Wang Lin continued to rush toward the Baifeng great sage and the 12 sacred heavens wonderful flower formation. But there were sharp arrows in the void. It was the great sage Zhujian who once again drew his bow and used the chasing wave demon arrow to stop Wang Lin. When he was fighting with Xianmen Tianzong in the desolate ancient Star Sea, the great sage Zhujian was almost exhausted after he shot out the most powerful blood arrow. But compared to that time, The demon magic of this demon had improved. Although his aura was much weaker now, he could still stop Wang Lin. Moreover, Wang Lin could clearly feel that the great sage Zhu Jian's condition was gradually recovering. Even if he continued to shoot the turbid wave demon arrow, it would not affect his recovery process. At the beginning of the fight, Wang Lin could vaguely feel that the great sage Zhu Jian had improved, but the improvement in the power of the turbid wave demon arrow was not obvious. At this moment, how could he not know that the great sage Zhu Jian's improvement over the years was mainly in his own recovery ability? His foundation was much stronger. Under such circumstances, the great sage Zhu Jian's explosive power might not have increased much, but his ability to continue fighting had greatly increased. Based on his current recovery speed, even if he continued to fight with Wang Lin, as long as he adopted a guerrilla strategy, the feeling of weakness in his body would gradually disappear in a short period of time. On the other side, Ning Wange's situation also made Wang Lin frown. Although he and Master Lin Feng had guessed that Ning Wange might have some connection with the enchantress, neither Lin Feng nor Wang Lin had expected that Ning Wange would have such a huge reaction after coming into contact with the enchantress's supernatural power aura and divine sense. Moreover, it was a reaction that would cause the current situation to fall into the abyss. Although the situation was bad, Wang Lin's eyes were still calm. With a sudden thought, he released the river of forgetfulness and the underworld pearl that were suppressing the great sage of Niekong. The golden light at the bottom of the river of forgetfulness strangely became calm. After a moment, it suddenly rushed out and rushed towards the great sage of Baifeng at the speed of lightning. The torrential river of forgetfulness was silent, but it flowed endlessly. It followed closely behind the golden light and also rushed towards the opponent. However, the activation of the wondrous time and space will array did not require too much time. After the delay just now, the array had already taken effect. The four thick light pillars completely fused at this moment, turning into an extremely huge light pillar that enveloped everyone within it. It connected heaven and earth like a passageway, bringing everyone in the passageway to the void outside the ocean sea realm. The great sage of Niekong, who had transformed into golden light, did not stop his actions. He continued to fiercely rush towards the great sage of Baifeng. Although he had been injured by the great sage of Zhu Jian's demon arrow, the aura that the great sage of Niekong displayed at this moment was still extremely terrifying. The great sage of Golden Rock had already fallen. As the great sage of Bifeng had said before, how the golden-winged rocks should continue to exist in the future and move forward was a problem that had to be faced squarely. Especially for the great sage of golden-winged rocks, who was second only to the great sage of Golden Rock race. This was a problem that had to be faced squarely. However, at this moment, the great sage of Niekong's anger still erupted, and his target was the great sage of Bifeng, who was originally a top expert under the command of the great sage of Golden Rock race, but had now defected to the enchantress. The great sage of Bifeng let out a long cry, and a fiery red light flashed around his body. It was not a flame, but the fiery red demonic light made one's heart palpitate and felt extremely hot. The wondrous time and space will array had already been activated. There was no need for her to continue activating the array, and the great sage of Bifeng had also regained his ability to move freely. She was originally a top great demon of the Star Soul Unification realm, and had achieved it even earlier than the great sage of Niekong. Usually, because the golden-winged rocks were extremely gifted in speed, she did not have much of an advantage in a fight. However, now that the great sage of Niekong was seriously injured, she naturally did not fear him. Moreover, because she had just defected to the enchantress, she would only put in more effort to fight the great sage of Niekong in front of the great sage of Zhu Jian, the great sage of Fei, and the great sage of Revolving Turtle. However, the great sage of Zhu Jian had no time to care about the great sage of Bifeng and the great sage of Niekong at this moment. The array had officially been activated, and Wang Lin had completely given up and began to focus all his attention on the great sage of Zhu Jian. Chapter 1157. Ning Wange stood blankly on the spot, her body stiff as if she had fallen into a daze. However, the five-colored radiance around her kept flickering, showing that her current state was extremely unstable. The revolving turtle great sage glanced at Ningguang and thought, "This person is strange. Why would she suddenly fall into a state of qi deviation? However, it's best not to touch her for now, lest there be any unexpected changes which would be bad. I'll deal with her after I deal with the others." The strength that Wang Lin displayed had already exceeded the expectations of the revolving turtle great sage, Zhu Jian, and the other great demons. Against a great demon like Zhu Jian who had already gone through tribulations. Although Wang Lin was at a disadvantage and injured, he still had powerful combat power. This made Zhu Jian have to be careful. Otherwise, if he was not careful, he could be turned around by Wang Lin's unpredictable and abnormally powerful means. The opponent in front of the revolving turtle great sage was not ordinary either. As one of the 9 treasures of heavenly gates that had reached the Mahayana level in ancient times, the Tsangtian Dao Jian unleashed his 9 heavens godly sword Wei. His attacks were extremely sharp. Even a great demon like the revolving turtle great sage, who was in the realm of astral soul as one, could only take a defensive stance. The sword momentum of the Tsangtian Dao Jian changed continuously. First, he used the Southeast Yang Heaven sword that referenced the power of the Golden Crow clan's real fire of the sun. He drew on the heavenly fire of the Qianyang, and turned it into a brilliant sun. It was as if the sun was in the middle of the sky. He attacked ferociously, forcing the revolving turtle great sage to reinforce the spatial barrier. After noticing the movements of the revolving turtle great sage, Jian Songtian immediately judged that a head-on attack was not beneficial in breaking through the defense of the revolving turtle great sage. Hence, he changed his sword momentum and turned it into a cunning green sword light. It was like a needle, searching for the flaws of the revolving turtle great sage. This was the Western celestial sword. The sword momentum was mysterious and focused on attacking the opponent's flaws. It also contained the artistic conception of the Jade Dragon Flame, which was used by the Jade Dragon clan to break through the magical power of others. The eyes of the revolving turtle great sage flickered. He had already revealed his true form. His huge body was like a floating island. His 4 limbs, head, and tail had all retracted into his shell. Even if the Tsangtian Dao Jian's sword light broke through the barrier of space and slashed onto his true form, it was blocked by the thick turtle shell. However, just as the Tsangtian Dao Jian was about to abandon him and find trouble with the others, the revolving turtle sage's huge body, which had shrunk into the turtle shell, flew up and smashed towards the Tsangtian Dao Jian with unerring accuracy. The momentum was extremely terrifying, as though the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. Jian Tsangtian sneered, "I was waiting for you." Amidst the cold laughter, the sword light on the ancient Tsangtian Dao Jian flowed. As it flashed, it suddenly became illusory and indistinct. It was hard to find a trace of it. After the Northwest Celestial Sword, which referenced the mystical abilities of the Dark Emperor's lineage, avoided the revolving turtle sage's attack, the Tsangtian Dao Jian's sword light changed again. As the sword intent swept out, it was heavy and heavy. The Northwest Celestial Sword turned into the Northern Celestial Sword. The heavy sword intent locked onto the revolving turtle sage, and came crashing down. Under the pressure of the sword momentum, the revolving turtle sage's rapidly spinning body slowed down. However, just as it was about to hit the revolving turtle sage, the Northern Celestial Sword turned into the Western Celestial Sword. The cunning sword light headed straight for the hole in the revolving turtle sage's turtle shell. Among the several great sword principles, the Tsangtian Dao Jian was able to change at will. The sword that was born was no longer just a sword principle. Instead, it was as though the various great Dao techniques were unleashed at the same time. However, the great sage of the revolving turtle was not someone to be trifled with. His head, which was hidden in the turtle shell, let out a low growl. In an instant, the space in the turtle shell distorted and shattered, turning into a black hole that swallowed the sword light of the sword of the heavenly way. In the void far away from where the two of them were fighting, a black hole also appeared. A lush green sword light shot out from it. The Tsangtian Dao Jian's heart skipped a beat. This demon's control over the power of spatial transformation is truly extraordinary. The lush green sword light flashed in the void for a moment. However, it did not dissipate. Instead, it instantly arrived before the revolving turtle sage, and continued to attack him. At the same time, the Tsangtian Daojian's attacks did not stop. They attacked the revolving turtle sage relentlessly, like a tidal wave. However, the revolving turtle sage was very cunning. He once again assumed the appearance of a turtle hiding in its shell, and focused on defense. Only when the Tsangtian Daojian was about to leave him behind to assist Wang Lin, and the others would the revolving turtle sage launch an attack. However, as long as he hindered the Tsangtian Daojian, he would revert to his old ways. The Tsangtian Daojian was also very experienced in fights of magical powers. He tried to set up a trap and find a chance to injure the revolving turtle sage severely. However, the revolving turtle sage did not seek to gain merit, but to avoid making mistakes. This caused the Tsangtian Daojian to feel like a tiger trying to bite a hedgehog. The revolving turtle sage's style was conservative. The Tsangtian Daojian had more or less grasped the initiative, allowing him to assist Wang Lin and the others. However, under the interference of the revolving turtle sage, the effect was minimal. It was like trying to put out a burning cart of firewood with a cup of water. The old turtle in front of him revealed his true form. His physical strength, magical powers, and demonic powers were extremely powerful. Even if he were to fight the Tsangtian Daojian head-on, he still had a chance of winning. However, in that case, the Tsangtian Daojian, as a sword magic treasure, had a powerful attack. Not to mention who would win, the battle would be decided in a relatively short time. The revolving turtle sage did not have enough confidence of winning. Naturally, he was not willing to decide the outcome so quickly. The Sword of Heaven Dao was well aware of why the old tortoise was doing this. In other battles, the demon race had a huge advantage. Although the master of the underworld hall, Su Anda, did not have a magic treasure in hand, he was not afraid of the Fei Great Sage. He unleashed his magical powers and fought the Fei Great Sage, who had revealed his true form. However, in order to stop the operation of the 12 Sacred Heavens' wonderful flower array formation, under the instructions of Wang Lin and the mysterious Sky God sealing flag, he had abandoned his own defense and attacked the Baifeng Great Sage and the demon array. As a result, he had suffered a heavy blow from the Fei Great Sage. Now that he was fighting the Fei Great Sage again, it was inevitable that he would be at a disadvantage. Fortunately, he had inherited the King of the Underworld's orthodoxy. His recovery ability and life-saving ability were unique. If most Dao integration experts had suffered that blow from the Fei Great Sage, their situation would have been much more serious. If they were to face the Fei Great Sage's subsequent storm-like attacks with their seriously injured bodies, they would have long been defeated. Even so, Su Anda was at a disadvantage when facing the Fei Great Sage, which made him feel even more depressed. On the other side, the battle between Wang Lin and the Great Sage Zhu Jian had reached its climax. Wang Lin had the extreme Dao rebirth technique, which could quickly recover his magic power and make up for the damage caused by the Supreme Destruction technique. However, this technique involved the power of the Dao of Annihilation, so it could only be used a limited number of times within a certain period of time. Although Wang Lin's current magic power was not as good as when he had just achieved the primordial spirit, the cycle of the Netherworld Extermination Realm's two extremes of life and death was still not unlimited. If he did not use the Supreme Destruction technique, it was inevitable that Wang Lin would be at a disadvantage in a battle of strength with a great demon like the Great Sage Zhu Jian. In particular, the injury on his arm was caused by the Turbid Wave Demon Arrow. It could not be healed, which damaged the foundation of Wang Lin's primordial spirit and Great Dao, further affecting his combat power. However, since he did not need to suppress the Nyekong Great Sage, nor did he need to be distracted by the 12 Sacred Heaven Ingenious Flower formation, Wang Lin could focus on the battle with the Great Sage Zhu Jian. The Netherworld Pearl above his head was surging with the Netherworld True Water. Even without the help of the Tsangtian Daojian, the Great Sage Zhu Jian did not dare to be careless. The Great Sage Zhu Jian also had rich combat experience. He was at the First Tribulation Realm, but when facing Wang Lin, who was at the Primordial Spirit Incarnation Realm, he actually chose to fight with the Great Sage Zhu Jian. Wang Lin had given him too many surprises. At this moment, he completely regarded Wang Lin as an equal opponent. In the battle, He only wanted to kill this threatening enemy. Other things like face and such were temporarily cast aside. However, this made Wang Lin's heart sink slightly. He was not in a good state, and so was the great sage Zhu Jian. Just now, after the great demon used his spine as a bow and turned his blood essence into an arrow, he inevitably fell into a weak state. However, after that, the great sage Zhu Jian kept recovering. He did not fight recklessly with Wang Lin, not because he could not win, but because he did not want to pay too much of a price. Therefore, he used this delaying strategy to further exhaust Wang Lin's strength, while waiting for his strength to recover to its peak. Wang Lin could almost imagine the great sage Zhu Jian's next move. When his strength recovered to a certain extent, he would immediately seek an opportunity to attack Wang Lin at close range. Although the great sage Zhu Jian's defense was average, his pure physical strength was great, and it was considered superior among the demon clan. After achieving further results, the great sage Zhu Jian would once again use his white bone blood arrow to attack and completely end Wang Lin. If this attack still could not kill Wang Lin, then he would use the same method again. After not being able to crush Wang Lin in one go, the great sage Zhu Jian immediately changed his method. He still used his stronger strength to fight, but this time, he wanted to slowly exhaust Wang Lin to death. The great sage Zhu Jian's eyes were cold, and his expression was calm. His heart was cold and calm, without the slightest bit of impatience or shame. He was extremely patient and extremely cruel. As Wang Lin watched, his expression was also cold. If the Tsangtian Dao Jian, a Mahayana-grade treasure, was beside him to share the pressure and fight together, the great sage Zhu Jian's method would not work. However, at the moment, the Tsangtian Dao Jian was being held back by the revolving turtle great sage, so Wang Lin could only rely on himself. On the other side, Su Anda, who was facing the Fei great sage with his injuries, was also under great pressure. However, he was already the strongest person imprisoned by the Xiantian God-sealing banner. If it were someone else, they would not be a match for the Fei great sage even if they fought him empty-handed. Even if they wanted to take turns to fight him, the effect would not be obvious. Of course, Wang Lin had another option, which was to simply escape. Even if the Fei great sage chased after him, it would only be more difficult to kill him than it was now. The other person had the same idea. After the anger in the great sage's mind gradually dissipated, his will to live rose again. Moreover, if he died here, the situation of the Golden-Winged Rock clan would be even worse. With this thought, the great sage Zhu Jian immediately escaped into the void. Whether it was the great sage Zhu Jian, the Baifeng great sage, or the other great demons, none of them stopped him. Although it would be better to kill or capture the great sage Zhu Jian here, to them, the most important goal at the moment was the ring on Wang Lin's hand. Chapter 1158. Under the effect of the miraculous time and space wheel array, everyone was pulled out of the ocean world by the light pillar, and arrived at the endless void precinct outside the colossal world. Although the Sky Great Sage was heavily injured, he was still able to survive in the void turbulence. He flew at an extremely fast speed, wanting to break through the giant light pillar. The Baifeng Great Sage, who was fighting with him, did not take the opportunity to pursue him. Instead, he opened the door of convenience and let him leave. The Zhu Jian Great Sage, the Revolving Turtle Great Sage, and the Fei Great Sage did not intend to stop him. Although this would leave some trouble in the future, the Zhu Jian Great Sage, the Baifeng Great Sage, and the other's target was undoubtedly Wang Lin. The Sea Sage had already lost the ring, and it was now in Wang Lin's hands. Naturally, the Zhu Jian Great Sage and the other great demon's first target was him. Without the Sea Sage's interference, the Baifeng Great Sage was free to further increase the strength of his side, and the pressure on Wang Lin and the others increased. With this, Wang Lin and the others' situation became more and more difficult. Without any communication, the Baifeng Great Sage took on the Tsangtian Dao Jian's attack for the Revolving Turtle Great Sage, and fought with the Tsangtian Dao Jian. The Revolving Turtle Great Sage did not go to help the Great Sage Zhu Jian and the Great Sage Fei. Instead, he once again spread out his space rampart. Layer upon layer, he built a barrier inside the wondrous time and space wheel array, trapping everyone in the center. This was to cut off Wang Lin's escape route. The sea sage could escape, but Wang Lin could not. At least, he could not leave with the ring. It was not impossible for Wang Lin and the others to break through the space barrier. However, under the situation where the Zhujian Great Sage and the other great demons were attacking, it was as difficult as ascending to heaven if they had to divert their attention to open a path. As his supernatural power and demonic power continued to recover, Great Sage Zhujian's attacks became more powerful. Turbid wave demonic arrows flew toward Wang Lin one after another. At the same time, he leaped and began to approach Wang Lin. After the battle just now, not only had Wang Lin's arm been torn apart by the turbid wave demonic arrow, but his ancient and modern world divine art and bridge of helplessness had also been damaged to the foundation of his Tao. He wouldn't be able to use them for a short period of time. This made it much more difficult for him to dodge the turbid wave demonic arrow. If not for the seemingly calm but actually domineering netherworld true water sweeping across the sky, he would have been injured by the turbid wave demon arrow again. Losing the bridge of helplessness also caused his speed to decrease greatly, and the great sage Zhujian continued to close in on him. Looking at the great sage Zhujian and the great sage revolving turtle in front of him, Wang Lin's expression was calm, and his eyes flickered faintly. Due to the obstruction of the wonderful time and space wheel array, Wang Lin and the others temporarily lost contact with Lin Feng. However, Lin Feng vaguely sensed something. This feeling seems to be a very powerful force that is shaking the void of the Ying Sea. Who is it? As Lin Feng thought to himself, he looked up. The great sage Zhujian and the great sage Heavenly Wolf don't have this ability. Could it be her? Lin Feng's main body was currently sitting on Yujing Mountain, in the sky above the Spirit Abyss mountain range of infinite wilderness. Below him was the ancestral land of the primordial demonic ape. Demonic aura soared into the sky, and groups of demons danced wildly, continuously attacking Yujing Mountain. At that moment, something else appeared in the air above Yujing Mountain. 12 huge light pillars formed a circle, as though they were isolating the world. They extended from the sky above and enveloped Yujing Mountain. The yin-yang life and death array that Ding of Shenzhou was presiding over had already shifted to the sky above Yujing Mountain, blocking the 12 light pillars and preventing them from landing on the mountain. Lin Feng looked at this scene expressionlessly. 12 sacred heavens life and death array? Furthermore, it was not a projection of power, but the true 12 sacred heavens life and death array. An extremely powerful aura emanated from it, and the light shadows of the 12 top demon races floated in the 12 light pillars. The sky above had already broken open, revealing the dark void. In this void, a figure was looking down at Lin Feng in Yujing Mountain. It was a figure that seemed to be hidden in a chaotic fog. It looked like a human, but its specific appearance could not be seen at all. It was the Enchantress. The person who was currently here was not the dermic power projection of the Enchantress, but her main body. She had descended here, and activated the 12 sacred heavens life and death array to appear in front of Lin Feng. She clapped her palms gently, and a dark cloud suddenly appeared above her head. It looked only about an acre in size, but it gave off a feeling of infinite power. As the dark cloud swayed, streams of light surged from within. It was as though lightning was shuttling through the thunderclouds, but it was silent. However, it was even more terrifying than the thunderclouds and lightning. It was suffocating. The streams of light surged out from the dark cloud and landed on the surrounding 12 light pillars. These light pillars immediately became more dazzling. In the void in the middle of the light pillars, large numbers of light patterns appeared and gathered together. It was like a sparkling sea of clouds that filled the entire sky. Countless rays of light shuttled between the heaven and earth. Among the 12 pillars of light, 4 of them grew brighter and thicker. The demon light shadows in these 4 light pillars were the primordial sky dragon, the heavenly demon ape of the primordial demon ape race, the primordial black tortoise, and the Kuran Purng. The golden primordial sky dragon was hidden in the auspicious clouds with a dragon's might. The dragon's head and tail could not be seen, but the majestic power of its flesh and blood emanated from it. It was as though it could shatter the heaven and earth with a swipe of its claws or tail. And a black giant ape the size of a mountain glared at the sky with a pair of blood-red eyes. It let out a deafening roar as the power of its body shattered everything in the void. Silently, a giant tortoise lay there. It was as heavy as an abyss in the earth. Its size was so huge that be it the revolving tortoise, Tibetan tortoise, or mysterious underworld tortoise, none of them could compare to it. Although it was just a light shadow in the light pillars, if one did not shrink the void and leave the light pillars to reveal its true body, it would no longer be an island or a mountain. It would be like a floating continent. This was the long-extinct pure-blooded black tortoise. However, because its blood essence had been absorbed by the demon array, it had reappeared in the 12 sacred skies flower net array, and in the 4th light pillar was a Kuan Peng. It seemed to be constantly bobbing up and down in the primordial universe. Sinking was a fish. It was completely black and incomparably huge. Its body was thousands of kilometers long. Floating was a bird. Its feathers were green, and it had a golden beak. There were white feathers on the top of its head. When it spread its wings, it was thousands of kilometers wide. At this moment, the light shadow of the Kuan Peng shook its body. It stopped bobbing up and down. Instead, it fixed itself in the form of a Kuan. Its heavy body chi and blood immediately spread out. It was not inferior to the great demons of the other 3 clans. Apart from the carrying sky ant and the primordial divine elephant, the demon clan with the strongest physical strength had all gathered here. The low and hoarse voice of the enchantress sounded between heaven and earth. The syllables were strange and did not sound like a human language. Sky-shaking, earth-shaking flower net array. The other 8 light pillars had already gradually disappeared. Only the 4 light pillars illuminated the heaven and earth. Then, the 4 light pillars gradually gathered together and turned into an extremely huge light pillar. It pressed down on the yin and yang life and death formation and Jade Jing Mountain. On the divine abyss mountain range, the great sage and Zhu Yan were expressionless. They stared at the sky-reaching demonic ape and the divine monkey in the light pillar. There was no anger on their faces, but neither did they feel happy that the enchantress had come to their aid. However, while the enchantress was activating the demon formation, the great sage and Zhu Yan did not hold back. They still activated the power of the divine abyss mountain range and firmly entangled Lin Feng, buying time for the enchantress to set up the formation. When the sky-shaking, earth-shaking flower net array was completely activated, the majestic power that seemed to be able to forcibly crush the boundless world made the yin and yang life and death formation, which was under the command of Ding of Shenzhou, unstable. In the air, an extremely thick pillar of light pressed down tightly on a world of light formed by a huge matrix. The power of the domain continued to shatter and press down. And this world of light was pressed down by the pillar of light until it slowly descended from the sky, continuously falling towards Yujing Mountain below. It's not easy for you to find the real blood of black tortoise left behind from the primordial age. On Jade Jing Mountain, Lin Feng's expression did not change. He pinched the incantation gestures with both hands and pointed his fingers lightly. The changes of heaven and earth in the yin and yang life and death formation operated in reverse, turning the heavy power that Ding of Shenzhou used to suppress the earth upward. It turned into an indestructible sky that forcibly withstood the falling light pillar. At the intersection of the 2 sides, heaven and earth seemed to be turned upside down. The sky was below, and the earth was above. The power of boundaries was distorted to the extreme. In the demon formation, the dark clouds above the enchantress's head gradually dispersed and fell toward Jade Jing Mountain below. The yin and yang life and death formation was suppressed by the sky-shaking, earth-shaking flower net array, and could not stop it. The enchantress could only watch as the dispersed dark clouds drifted toward Jade Jing Mountain. Lin Feng's eyes turned slightly cold. "My fellow Taoist Tianmei, do you want to fight me today?" He held the index and middle fingers of his right hand together like a sword and triggered the heaven punishment sword formation to cut away the dark clouds. The enchantress said in a low voice, "The master of the celestial gate is extremely powerful. Now is not the time for me to fight you to the death. However, I have to fight you for the ring on the Thunder Abyss Golden Rock's hand." As he spoke, the enchantress did not continue to exert force. However, the upward impact of the Spirit Abyss Mountain below Jade Jing Mountain had begun to destabilize Jade Jing Mountain. The great sage and great saint Zhu Yan were wary of Lin Feng's heaven punishment sword. Although they did not use their full strength, they cooperated with the enchantress, causing Lin Feng to fall into a pincer attack. On Infinite Wasteland there was a strange scene. On the ground was the huge Spirit Abyss Mountain, while in the sky was a thick beam of light that pierced through the void. The two of them sandwiched Jade Jing Mountain in the middle, pressing it from top to bottom. Sitting on the mountain, Lin Feng's expression gradually became solemn, but his eyes were still calm. He suddenly asked the enchantress a question that seemed to have nothing to do with the current situation. As far as I know, the killing prison wolf is still in Infinite Wasteland and has not gone to Yingxi. The enchantress did not answer, but his eyes were shining. Silently Lin Feng said, "The golden rock was killed by you, the peacock's whereabouts are unknown, and Qiongqi has long been killed by me. The black void golden rock will not surrender to you easily. Even if you have the forces of the golden rock great saint, there should only be the Zhujian, the revolving tortoise, the Fei, and the Baifeng in Yingxi right now, right?" He glanced at the enchantress and said, "If there are no other unknown experts under your command, then you will not be able to get that ring." The enchantress's eyes narrowed slightly. Lin Feng said indifferently, "Because it is in the hands of my disciple Wang Lin." Chapter 1159. In the vast land of Infinite Wasteland, Yujing Mountain was under pressure from the Divine Abyss Mountains and the 12 Sacred Heavens Array. It was already in a precarious situation. The Enchantress, the Great Sage, and Zhu Yin Great Sage were three great demons in the Dharma-ending realm. The other party had the help of the ancestral land of the apes, the Divine Abyss Mountains, and the 12 Sacred Heavens Array. Even Lin Feng felt some pressure. The white jade-like auspicious clouds around Yujing Mountain spread out, blocking the demonic atmosphere of the Divine Abyss Mountains that kept rushing up. Ding of Shenzhou was suppressing the yin and yang life and death array, supporting the falling giant light pillar with the power of heaven and earth. But Lin Feng's gaze was still calm, leisurely looking towards the distant end of the void. Thanks to that karma debate, other than improving and perfecting the path of karma of Buddhism, it also allowed Lin's understanding and cultivation of the great Tao of heaven and earth to become even more profound. In terms of the comprehension of the true yin and yang origin scripture, currently amongst my disciples, he probably has the deepest understanding. Little Lin has confirmed his way of yin and yang, and has successfully taken the first step on this foundation. It's really worthy of celebration. Perhaps he wasn't clear before, but under the heavy pressure brought by the enemy, it will help him to build a solid foundation. The enchantress naturally did not know what Lin Feng was thinking. However, Lin Feng's words just now made her feel slightly awestruck. Her intuition told her that the situation might develop beyond her expectations. Almost subconsciously, the enchantress sent a voice transmission to the Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, ordering him to find a way to rush over to the Great Sage Zhu Jian and the other great demons as soon as possible. At this moment, outside the Yingxi, outside the Kiliacosm, in the void beyond the heavens, the revolving turtle Great Sage was opening a space boundary, sealing the void. In this space boundary, Wang Lin faced the Great Sage Zhu Jian. He took a deep breath, and his entire body suddenly shed his human form, turning into a huge Taiji diagram of the netherworld. On this Taiji diagram, there seemed to be a huge netherworld. Layers of light and shadow flickered. At the end of the black and yellow road, a dim river flowed silently. Above the river stood an ancient black stone bridge. At one end of the black stone bridge there was a city-like hall. The door of the hall was open, and two wheels, one black and one white, kept spinning. In the depths of the hall stood a flat, mirror-like stone. It was Wang Lin's incarnation of his Yuan spirit. However, a crack had appeared on one corner of the netherworld Taiji diagram of the netherworld, and the ancient black stone bridge in the netherworld had also cracked. These were the marks left by the turbid wave demon arrow. The Taiji diagram of the diagram of the Taiji diagram of the Taiji diagram of. Seeing this, Great Sage Zhu Jian's eyes were still calm and cold, but they became even more serious. Dazzling starlight began to appear on his body, as if stars were condensing in his huge body, causing his power and aura to become even stronger. The turbid wave demon arrow appeared on his right claw again. He knocked the bow and pulled the bowstring. A muffled sound shook the surroundings. At the tip of the arrow of light, a dot of Zhou's starlight became more and more dazzling. The tip of the arrow seemed to carry the power of the stars. When the arrow was released, a star fell to the ground. The great sage Zhu Jian's supernatural power was special. He had reached the realm of star-soul fusion. He had sacrificed the stars and the demon soul to fuse. However, he would not use it under normal circumstances. This was because if he used the power of the stars he had sacrificed, a turbid wave demon arrow would be shot out like a star. To the great sage Zhu Jian, this would be a permanent loss. He would need to sacrifice the stars again. Therefore, the great sage Zhu Jian would not use this method easily. If it were not for the turbid wave demon arrow, he would be at a disadvantage against other great demons of the same realm. However, such a huge price would be exchanged for a powerful attack that most cultivators of the same realm could not resist. If he was not confident, the great sage Zhu Jian would not waste the stars he had sacrificed so much to train. Once the arrow was released, it would draw blood and take the opponent's life. For the sake of your master, hand over the ring, and I will let this matter rest. Otherwise, I cannot guarantee that I will spare your life. The great sage Zhu Jian said coldly. If you continue to resist, I can only shoot you to death here today. Wang Lin did not answer. Slowly, the netherworld Tai Chi diagram spun. The aura of his supernatural power became more profound and ethereal. Seeing this, the great sage Zhu Jian nodded. Tell your master to prepare to collect your corpse. Then the great sage Zhu Jian's aura changed. The starlight surrounding him burned in large amounts and turned into rolling streams of light that gathered in the great sage Zhu Jian's single eye. His eye was emotionless. It was as if he was staring at a dead person. He looked at the netherworld Tai Chi diagram formed by Wang Lin's primordial spirit. Somehow, there seemed to be a strange feeling that locked onto Wang Lin. It surpassed the barriers of space and time. It broke through all kinds of illusory concealment and went straight to the root. It was hard to block and hard to avoid. This strange feeling triggered the light arrow that the great sage Zhu Jian placed on the big bow to connect with Wang Lin. It was as if as long as the arrow was released, it was destined to hit Wang Lin's primordial spirit. This was indeed another of the great sage Zhu Jian's strange supernatural powers. It required him to burn his own supernatural power and sacrifice the power of the stars in exchange for the ability to lock onto the target. The price was great, but the reward was even greater. The great sage Zhu Jian stared at Wang Lin. Suddenly his single eye closed. At this moment, the turbid wave demon arrow left the bow and was released. After the arrow was released, the light arrow disappeared. When it reappeared, it was already in front of the netherworld Tai Chi diagram formed by Wang Lin's primordial spirit. The bright stars first became incomparably dazzling. It was as if they had burned all their light and heat in an instant. Together with the light arrow, a powerful force erupted and swept across the netherworld above the Taiji diagram formed by Wang Lin's primordial spirit. The Yellow Springs path continued to shatter and crack. The surging river of forgetfulness seemed to be on the verge of stopping. The already cracked bridge of helplessness was completely broken into 4 pieces. The majestic Emperor Yan's hall was also constantly shaking. The bricks and tiles on the main hall continued to shatter. A crack also appeared on the stone of 3 lives in the middle of the hall. After the initial explosion of light, the center of the light gave birth to extreme darkness. Everything in the center of the darkness kept collapsing, creating a huge suction force that turned into a black hole that swept up everything in its surroundings and sucked it into the black hole. Wang Lin's primordial spirit was sucked into the black hole. The shattered netherworld turned into ruins and was devoured by the black hole. Even the Taiji diagram formed by Wang Lin's primordial spirit was distorted and gradually sucked into the black hole. At this moment, the great sage Zhu Jian's closed eye suddenly opened. A dim light flashed, and the black hole suddenly exploded. The black hole shattered, and the surrounding void was forcefully annihilated. The entire void was filled with fragmented and flowing chaos. When the Songtian Daojian and Su Anda saw this, they were shocked. Songtian Daojian's eyes were filled with worry, while Su Anda's eyes were shining. No one knew what he was thinking. In the distance, as the Xiantian God-sealing banner fluttered, a youth in black with a cold expression appeared under the banner. He stared at the shattered space in the distance that had turned into nothingness. He watched as the chaos was reborn, and the void was filled. However, everything that had existed before had turned into nothingness. The great sage revolving turtle's old voice sounded, "Mo Ling, that ring." Don't worry, the first attack was on his primordial spirit. Once his primordial spirit blocked the attack, the ring should be fine. It's just that after the void shattered, the spatial turbulence sent the ring and some of his belongings to an unknown place. However, it won't go beyond the range of the wonderful time wheel formation, the great sage Zhu Jian said as he scanned the void with his single eye. However, he suddenly felt a sense of danger. He turned around and saw the underworld pearl floating silently. A large amount of underworld real water gushed out from it. The dark river water gradually condensed into a human figure with facial features. It was Wang Lin. The great sage Zhu Jian's eyes narrowed. He actually cultivated such a superior death substitution rebirth technique. There were many kinds of death substitution rebirth techniques. Some were strong, some were weak, and they were not omnipotent. However, the great sage Zhu Jian's arrow just now failed to break Wang Lin's extreme path of nirvana. As the light flowed, Wang Lin returned to his human form. His face was pale, and his breath was slightly weak. However, his eyes were brighter than ever since the battle began. He stared straight at the great sage Zhu Jian. "You've already died once. You should cherish your life. As I said before, hand over the ring, and I'll spare your lives. I'll let you go." The great sage Zhu Jian was stunned at first. Then the seriousness in his single eye became more and more intense. His cold murderous intent also became stronger. He reacted quickly. Seeing that Wang Lin escaped death with a secret technique, he drew his bow again and aimed the arrow at Wang Lin again. "Otherwise you'll die here today. Your technique can save you now, but it can't save you forever." Death substitution rebirth techniques were never infinite, and they were never omnipotent. The great sage Zhu Jian wanted to add another arrow to kill Wang Lin once and for all. Wang Lin's expression was indifferent. He said coldly, "Do you think I took that arrow for nothing?" With a turn of his body, the Yuan Shen incarnation of the Tai Chi diagram appeared again. However, this time it was much more dilapidated. The netherworld was only a barren wasteland. "Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish," the great sage Zhu Jian said as he released the terrifying arrow refined by the stars again, shooting it at Wang Lin. On the giant nether Tai Chi diagram, a strange light suddenly shone. One was black, and the other was white. Two thick beams of light crisscrossed and intersected vertically on the Tai Chi diagram formed by Wang Lin's Yuan Shen. It was like a crossroad where two roads intersected. When the great sage Zhu Jian's arrow reappeared, it had already shot at the cross-shaped light. It was about to destroy it and shatter Wang Lin's Yuan Shen for the second time. At this time, Wang Lin's calm voice came from the nether Tai Chi diagram. "Missed." As soon as he said that, the turbid wave demon arrow shot by the great sage Zhu Jian landed on the vertical black light. In a flash, the arrow seemed to have lost control. It did not follow the path formed by the black light. Instead, it strangely made a turn at the intersection of the cross-shaped light and merged with the horizontal white light. In the next moment, the turbid wave demon arrow separated from the white light. It failed to hit the nether Tai Chi diagram and flew far away. It bloomed brilliantly in the distant void and exploded. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.